Hello, puppies and kittens. If you're watching this live, it means you were not raptured. Where's your God now, bitch? All right, so welcome back to another episode of the Blasphemers Bible, and congratulations to Lawrence, who last night was on the line on a show called 'Cause I Wanna, where I got to introduce a new Bible scholar to the community. That was great fun.
Huzzah!
I had a really good time, honestly. And part of me is a little sad that we didn't get very many. Well, we didn't really get any crazy Christians. Everyone that we talked to was kind of chill. So, yeah, unfortunately, didn't have any of those. I was looking in the comments, and it seems like one of the callers that dropped would have been one of those crazy ones. So,
Oh, too bad.
Yeah, there's always been some unstable ones in Christianity, but they are really coming out of the woodwork. Anyway, so the rapture, does anyone know when it's been rescheduled for? I don't want to go.
Surprisingly,
some people raptured here.
Rescheduled just in the last century.
Oh yes, so many.
Imagine that out of all the people in the world, only the Jews will be raptured because Jesus was a Jew.
Yeah, you know.
But he thought all you guys were wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know he's sympathetic to us, right?
Right, yeah.
He did want everything to be tailored to the Jews only.
Well, the Matthew version of him did.
Yeah. So we are on Nehemiah 4 today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Anybody got any opening comments about that before we dive into it?
About Nehemiah 4 specifically?
Yeah.
It's a bit messy, I would say. Like
it's more narrative written.
Yeah, but I'm saying I'm not saying it's badly written. It's almost like it's more corrupt, or like it seems that there's words missing, stuff like that. It's a bit weird sometimes.
And if anyone's confused, so 4:1, so chapter 4, verse 1 is 3:33 in the Hebrew. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
and
that should be noted.
Chapter 4 in the Masoretic text, it ends with verse 17. So we start with in the Masoretic text we start with verse 33 in chapter 3.
Oh, okay. So verse 6 in the Hebrew is what chapter is that in? I mean, what's the Christian version?
Verse 6. So we rebuilt the wall.
Okay.
So for
who's
me,
reading?
I don't know. Whatever.
Aren't you reading?
Yeah,
no,
I was going to, but it sounded like Isaac might have been volunteering. So just making sure.
Oh, I wasn't volunteering. I was just wondering where I'm supposed to start.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and read then.
Yeah.
Yeah. The reading starts with now when Sanballat heard.
Yeah. Now, when Sanballat heard that we were building the wall, he was angry and greatly enraged until we told him that Mexico would pay for it.
That's verse 33, Isaac.
And he said, "Who the fuck is Mexico?"
Chapter 4 the Hebrew also starts with, and then they heard and they were angry, but it's a different group of people.
Yeah.
And he mocked the Jews. He said in the presence of his associates and the army of Samaria, "What are these feeble Jews doing? Will they restore it by themselves? Will they offer sacrifice? Will they finish it in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of rubbish, burned ones at that? Burned stones." Tobiah the Ammonite was beside him, and he said, "The stone wall they are building, any fox going up it would break it down. Hear, O our God, for we are despised. Turn their taunt back on their own heads, and give them over as plunder in a land of captivity. Do not cover their guilt, and do not let their sin be blotted out from your sight, for they have raged against the builders." So we rebuilt the wall, and all the wall was joined together to half its height, for the people had a mind to work. But when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabs and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the repairing of the walls of Jerusalem was going forward, and the gaps were beginning to be closed, they were very angry, and they plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem, to cause confusion in it. So we prayed to our God and set a guard as protection against them day and night. But Judah said, the strength of the burden bearers is failing, and there is too much rubbish so that we are unable to work at the wall. And our enemies said, they will not know or see anything before we come upon them and kill them and stop their work. And when the Jews who lived near them came, they said to us 10 times, from all the places where they live, they will come up against us. So in the lowest parts of the space behind the wall in open places, I stationed the people according to their families, with their swords, their spears, and their bows. After I looked these things over, I stood up and said to the nobles and the officials and the rest of the people, do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome. And fight for your kin, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your husbands, while God watches and doesn't do shit.
Hide your kids, hide your wife.
God's coming, and you don't want to have the young ones around for that.
Yeah. When our enemies heard that their plot was known to us.
Wait,
and
did
that
it say husbands or homes?
I'm sorry, what?
You read your wives and your husbands.
Your wives and your households.
Oh, households. Okay, that makes
Ooh.
sense.
Did I? Oh, yes, you're right. I'm having some trouble seeing today. Probably blow this up. All right, so when our enemies heard that the plot was known to us and that God had frustrated it, we all returned to the wall, each to his work. From that day on, half of my servants worked on construction and half held the spears, shields, bows, and body armor, for the leaders posted themselves behind the whole house of Judah, who were building the wall. The burden bearers carried their loads in such a way that each labored on with the work of one hand, to work with one hand, and the other held a weapon. And each of the builders had his sword strapped to his side while he built. The man who sounded the trumpet was beside me, and I said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, the work is great and widely spread out, and we are separated far from one another on the wall. Rally to us wherever you hear the sound of the trumpet. Our God will fight for us. So we labored at the work, and half of them held the spears from break of dawn until the stars came out. I also said to the people of that time, let every man and his servant pass by night inside Jerusalem, so that they may be a guard for us by night and may labor by day. So neither I, nor my brothers, nor my servants, nor the men of the guard who followed me ever took off their clothes. Each kept his weapon in his right hand. Okay.
Yeah, this is very David/Joshua like.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Where you have this, it is warlike, right? They're averting a war, but they do that with like, look how strong and united we are against this evil front that is trying to get rid of us.
It's a very powerful rhetorical narrative. You have these people, the image of working with one hand with a sword in the other. I mean, you really just have the damn thing strapped to your belt. But the point is, the image is one of great perseverance in building on one hand and defending with the other. All working together, coming in, and we all sleep inside the rooms so no one is vulnerable, and we don't even change our clothes because we're always ready. It's like wearing armor every single moment of your, God help you when you take it off the smell, but
while doing heavy labor.
Yeah,
I think that they should divide it up. I mean, you work a certain period where you keep your clothes on and you hold your weapon in your right hand, and then you can take your clothes off and hold your tool in your right hand.
I mean, that last section is a bit odd. Am I the only one hearing
there's quite a bit in this chapter
Yeah.
of like weird language. I mean, the translation kind of pulled it together, but it wasn't very literal. I mean, the 10 times thing is quite literal, but let's say the last bit where you said like don't take off their clothes or their weapons. But like the Hebrew says, like sending water or something like that.
Oh yeah. Each his weapon, the water.
Yeah, in Hebrew it's ish shilcho hamayim, which is very obscure, and I have like, and I have a long comment on it, kind of long. It's like a page, a half a page, but like,
Yeah,
yeah,
and there's some
it's a
other
bit,
verses as
it's
well
very,
where there's language.
it's
weird.
it's very obscure. Yeah.
Could it be
and the-
like what's the word? Like a misspelling? Maybe they were going for something else.
I mean, there are a lot of hypotheses, right?
Right.
Maybe it's like, maybe like there was a textual omission. Maybe there is
Yeah.
like
Like a letter
something that
dropped
is
out or
unclear.
something.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it is Septuagint, so I mean, the translator didn't even bother trying to figure it out.
Isaac pointed out that this is a somewhat cobbled together chapter, possibly more corrupted, possibly some things cut out, some things added, some things. It's a bit messy in the original language. But I mean, what that shows me, at least, especially looking at the translations and the interpretations, and no doubt further in the light of Tamer's commentary that we'll get to, is that this has been a point of rhetorical focus through more than one generation of editors. This is not about what literally happened. This is about, creating a nation building narrative of, the people having this great fortitude and drive and having this to look back on in future generations. Look what our forefathers did. Look what they accomplished with their endless dedication. And, I mean, it's absolutely strategically sound to have, watchers with trumpets at various points so that if an attack comes in any one direction, you can, rally and so forth. But it's also very striking imagery and something that, can stir the people towards this narrative about who they are and how they got to where they are. And that's a lot of what building a nation is about building those narratives in the mind of people.
Do you read into it any like, we're, they're trying to attack us.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like we can't handle it, but we're still gonna build nonetheless. Like,
yeah, not we can't handle it, more like we will overcome it with faith and grit and determination because we are the tested and chosen, yada yada yada. Admittedly, given the history, I'm not sure how much I trust how much they were actually being opposed. I mean, the narrative of being oppressed for religious purposes is.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
yeah.
It also kind of sounds like they're trying to scare people off, right? Like with that last verse, especially, or not the last verse, but the second to last verse. Yeah, let every man in his. It just kind of adds it onto the end, right? I also said to the people at the time, let every man and his servant pass the night inside Jerusalem, so that they may be a guard for us by night and may labor by day. It's like part of that. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to scare people into not coming after them too.
Yeah, I mean, as a defensive mechanism, like to make sure that everyone stays inside and doesn't go out by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And
also,
we
Isaac,
can build faster.
My ladies just scored. Canadian women's rugby final. We are head to head with Britain. Final. And
Britain?
Yeah.
In rugby?
Yeah.
Like it's a UK team? Like Great Britain team? Like,
yeah.
I thought they play separately, like each nation.
Oh, no. This is we just beat New Zealand to come up against Britain in the
okay.
Women's rugby
I thought in
finals.
rugby like England, Scotland, Wales.
No. This is international women's rugby.
Okay, maybe it's probably different.
Got a comment to read. Duke of Many Things says, Aaron, I missed the rapture. Any idea when the next one is? They're like buses, right?
Most of the atheists that I know really love pets. So I'm thinking of getting a database together and just selling rapture pet insurance because God sucks, but we'll still take care of your dog.
I just want people to put their money where their faith is. Just send me a check, post dated till after the rapture. Make sure it is for.
You will lose
amount,
arm.
but not quite more than what you have in your bank account. I don't want any rubber checks.
No,
Let's just see how much faith you have.
that was the first interaction you and I ever had. I think it was either on Twitter or in a YouTube comment section. Someone was, it was one of the earlier Rapture things they were hyping up about. And I was like, why don't they just write you a check for $1,000 post
Would
dated
this be
after the
2011?
Probably, yes. Oh, no, it wouldn't have been because I wasn't an atheist then. This was...
Yeah.
On the message got cut off. There was more to it. I just posted it. The one you just read.
Oh, okay. They're like buses, right? None for ages, and then 3 come in quick succession. Yeah.
I wanted to point out that according to Freed at least, she thinks that this section is not part of an authentic ancient Near East wall building story, but was added by the Hellenistic editor
Where
to
did
add
Tomer-
drama.
You
Sorry?
cut off, Tomer.
Oh, I can
Yeah.
hear him.
So it's Aaron's fault.
I think
Aaron is
this one might be
glitching.
you, Aaron, because we all heard that.
Yeah. So she writes that this was added by a Hellenistic editor to add drama, tension, and excitement to the narrative, and that this narrative was not created out of whole cloth, however, it is based on the letters to and from the Persian king, moved by a late editor to Ezra 4. Yeah. Though I think Becking draws a bit a more complex view. He writes that Nehemiah 4 is a coherent whole, and possibly derived from the Nehemiah memoir, and this is also favored by Williamson and Schunk. Okay, so I'll start with verse 2, which is 334 in the Masoretic text. Japhet comments, quote, Sanballat's words of mockery are heard by his brothers and the Samarian force in the inner circle of the Persian administration. His brothers are the office holders in the government of the province, and the Samarian force was the military force under his command. We have no information regarding the functions of the office holders and about the size and role of the military force. It could have been a small guard unit to the district and the government, a broader police force meant to maintain order in the district, or a strong military force capable of engaging in battle. From the continuation of the narrative, it seems that the hostility towards Nehemiah and the Judeans stems from the circles of the Persian government of Samaria. We do not hear about the reaction of the people of the province of Samaria, nor if they identified with the stance and actions of Sanballat. On that same verse, can they bring stones back to life? Harrington notes that burnt stones are often considered dead, since their natural moisture has evaporated and their usefulness for their intended purpose is forfeit. Also, Pseudo-Rashi, Gelsonides, Kimchi, and Saadia. Freed notes that the same expression is used in 1 Chronicles 11:8 and in a 10th century inscription of Yehimelik, king of Byblos, who in a temple dedication, KAI 2, page 6, writes, quote, a house that Yehimelik, king of Byblos, built, he restored all the ruined houses, end quote. Vulgate reads, are they able to raise stones? Which Marcus takes as mistranslation from an Aramaic which originally read Yakimun, will they raise up?
I mean, I can see that scorched and cracked stones would not be the kind of things you want to build a defensive wall out of. They're not going to be particularly stable.
Yeah. Also, Harrington notes that figuratively stones can be symbols of people. As the dry rubble of stones of Nehemiah's wall were recycled and repaired, so God can reuse people who have been injured or discarded by unfortunate circumstances. And this analogy of stone equals people is also found in the New Testament, where Christians are called to be living stones built into a spiritual house or temple in 1 Peter 2:5.
Also in the Shepherd of Hermas, it's kind of the whole thing. Like when they're building the temple, each person is supposed to be a stone, each new convert. And then once the day of judgment comes, that's when they stop building it, and you can no longer be a stone.
Oh, I wonder if that is, well, it's funny because some of the cults, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, for a long time had a doctrine that once the end times came, they would just continue preaching, it's too late, you're doomed, hi, bye, I'm gonna take your house when you're gone. Which admittedly they've kind of backed off on now, because they're, you have to adapt after so many false starts. But at the same time, it's pretty interesting looking at that, and seeing that that's been that there's a cutoff point, and that it's, once you have an actual evidence, because shit's actually started to go down, then it'll be too late, and you just have to watch it all unfold. Mwahaha.
Okay, on verses 4 and 5, which is 3:36 to 37 in the Masoretic text, Fried argues that Nehemiah's prayer, much like the prayer in Nehemiah 1, is the work of the Hellenistic biblical writer. As already noted in 1:5 through 11, prayers were often added to straightforward narratives in the Hellenistic period. She writes that this type of prayer, however, is an unconditional curse, since there is no provision, no situation in which the curse should not be brought about. The ultimate goal of all curses, and this curse too, is death and a painful life before it. She writes that the effectiveness of this curse in the mind of the reader, however, rests on the strength of the relationship between Nehemiah and the deity, Yahweh, that had already been created in the mind of the reader. On verses 7 and 8, which is 1 and 2, Japhet notes that while the objection of the enemies of Jerusalem is clear, the objective of the enemies of Jerusalem is clear, their exact motive is not. While Nehemiah writes that the motive was the enemy's great anger, it doesn't seem to be a very strong motive to go to war to. She notes, for example, that we do not know why the Ashdodites opposed the building of the Jerusalem wall. She writes that it is hard to assume that the local governors had the authority or the power to go to war without the approval of the Persian authorities. She writes, quote, From the events described in Ezra 4, it can be learned that in the period before Nehemiah, the Samaritans were forcefully involved in what was taking place in Jerusalem. But in that case, the matter was done not just by the approval of the Persian authorities, but in their direct order. Even so, this isn't an actual war. Are all these enemies not aware that Nehemiah was Artaxerxes' emissary, acting on his behalf? Or does their behavior reflect the weakness of the central government and its inability to exercise full control over distant provinces? All these questions remained unanswered.
I admit it does sound a little like, because initially it starts with a bit of smack talk, and we all know that God is a sensitive snowflake, and you mustn't say mean things about him or he gets his fifis hurt and kills everybody. But like, he's bitching about it to his neighbors. Who knows? Maybe there was some political, not overt stuff, messing with supply lines, over delays, or things that might or might not have been antagonistic in nature, or just maybe someone being selfish. This does sound like something that was hyped and turned into a more literal type of confrontation, for the aura farming.
I guess.
Oh, Aaron, you're muted.
Aaron, you're muted.
I wonder how this religion would have started out if it was a more mature community, people who knew what narcissism is and that sort of thing.
Well, this wouldn't have been a religion.
Yeah, there's a reason scientists aren't political leaders, because, as you've pointed out in several interviews,
Depends on
people who actually know what they're talking about will always speak with caveats. I'm sure someone knows more about this than me. Well, within this limited framework, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They'll qualify because their focus is on truth and accuracy and not overstepping what they do actually know. People respond better, unfortunately, to arrogant overconfidence, even if it knows absolutely nothing, including how to say acetaminophen.
Well, you can say it just fine. It's what he can't read that's the problem.
Can he read? I mean, I know he can read his own name on things, but I wasn't under the impression he could read much more than that.
Oh, he didn't recognize his signature on the birthday card.
Yep.
Yes, I'm sure that was very authentic. Totally not noticing. Very.
Have we seen his artistic style? Like, Does that distasteful image, is that his
Huh?
style?
Trump has drawn a few things, and he'll make a drawing of something, usually a skyline or something, because rectangles are easy. But he would draw that and then sign it and give it to somebody for a like a raffle or something.
I mean, didn't he draw a weather forecast once?
I don't remember that one.
He added on to the path of the hurricane would take, added it to say it's going to go to this other state that he doesn't like or something.
I don't know. Honestly, as an artist, I am offended by anyone calling anything he does an art style.
Yeah.
I have an art style.
Oh yeah.
Sorry. Okay, sorry.
You have art. I don't know about style.
I have art. No, I don't know. Irrelevant. Okay, on 10, which is 4, Becking comments, quote, "The vav consecutivum in Vayomer, and he said, can be understood as an epixegetic vav. The verb form does not refer to a following act in a narrative chain, but refers to an act that took place in the meantime. As the surrounding people gather together, Judah is raising a lamentation. Judah, quote unquote, stands here collectively for the inhabitants of Jerusalem and the surrounding area. Williamson is correct in saying that the content of their lamentation has the shape and the rhythm of a kinah, also Blenkinsop, aka lament. A kinah is a specific Hebrew dirge with 3 plus 2 as its meter. The Hebrew word kinah, elegy, or dirge, is attested about 15 times in the Hebrew Bible. Williamson assumes that the lament was spontaneous in the given situation. It seems to me more plausible that the narrator puts a traditional song in the mouth of the workers. The function of this kinah is clear. Although the work progresses on the wall, the fear is that work will never reach its end. There is too much work for too few people."
Well, admittedly, building an old stone wall like the battlements used to be by hand, apparently with one hand, uphill both ways, is a bit of a tall order.
Yeah.
Yeah. JPS
sorry.
translates JPS translates Vayomer Yehuda rather than and Yehuda then said sort of thing. He translates it as Judah was saying, which is in line with what you were saying about how the vav consecutive rather than meaning and then is kind of saying this was happening at the same time. And
yeah.
Surprising they got any work done with one hand on their stones and the other hand on their weapon.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything. There's nothing to add.
Depends on their profession, I guess.
Depends on their proficiency.
Okay. On 13, which is 7, I stationed some of the people, posting them by families. The Masoretic text reads, I stationed the people by families or clans. In Hebrew, A'amid et ha'am lemishpachot. Gersonides wrote that when members of the family are together, quote, each one will be greatly strengthened for the members of the family and will help each other wonderfully, end quote. Fried, however, writes that the word am here, which often signifies people, refers here to troops. She notes von Rad's opinion that once the army had gathered in the camp, it was called the people of Yahweh, as we see in Judges 5:11 and 13 and 22, and that we should read divisions instead of families. Vulgate reads, I set the people in order, which is an abbreviation, and Peshita, they organized the army by families.
I mean, the clan family division is the traditional one that they seem to be appealing to here as elsewhere in the narrative. How accurate that would have been, after the exile and the Exodus and trying to figure out who came from where and what tribe and whatnot. Who knows?
Did you go? Yeah.
That has
Sorry, did you go straight to verse 7?
I mean, it's 7 in the Masoretic text, right?
Yeah, but you didn't say anything about 6? It's quite a messy verse, no?
I mean, I tried to avoid. I mean, my commentary was like six pages, so I didn't really want to add.
That's what I'm saying. It's the Hebrew is was it? And they said to us 10 times, which could be just a phrase that means again and again.
I've told you a
yeah.
million times
Yeah, like
yeah,
what they
Yeah,
might
from
have said
all-
twice.
from all the places which they returned to us. And then if you look at your translations, it probably says more something like they attacked us, or they assaulted us, or something like that. But the Hebrew is just like the JPS translates it into English as like when the Jews living near them would arrive, they would tell us time and again, ... from all the places where ... you shall come back to us ... showing how disjointed it is.
yeah,
They didn't
Yeah,
try to fix it, the English that much.
smudged.
Yeah, I mean, Fried reads it as that's 12. No, it's verse 6. She reads it as, our enemies said, they will not know and they will not see until we have come upon them and we have killed them and have stopped the work. Oh, sorry, that's verse 5. But in verse 6 it reads, when the Judeans who were living among them came to us, they said to us over and over again, from every place to which we have returned, they will come upon us. And she writes
Yeah, I
that
guess.
the they will come, she writes that this phrase is missing. The verse has become corrupted. The Septuagint reads, they are coming upon us from every place. The Vulgate reads, they told us 10 times out of all the places from where they came to us. And Peshitta, 10 times they came to fight with you. Thus, there is reason to supply they will come, since something like it is in the versions.
Okay. So more to say we're saying I'm coming 10 times. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, you're really...
Let's continue.
Yeah. I just want to throw in, you're going to say you're coming 10 times. The thing to remember is that they don't come upon you until the very end of the video.
Aw.
Oh, well, they can come upon you. They're not coming upon me.
Okay, so on 14, which is 8, remember the Lord who is great and awesome. Harrington comments, quote, the phrase, remember the Lord great and awesome, reminds the community of Yahweh's promise to Israel through Moses. Quote, do not be terrified before them, for Yahweh your God is among you, a great and awesome God. End quote. Deuteronomy 7:21 and also Nehemiah 1:5 and 9:32. Nehemiah uses the respectful title, Lord, Adoni, instead of the personal name Yahweh. This trend began sometime during the Second Temple period. Some Jews were concerned not to mispronounce the name Yahweh because of its holiness and power, since the vowels of the name can only be a speculation. Only the 4 consonants of the name, the Tetragrammaton, were recorded in ancient Jewish texts. These are written in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Wow, guess who shows up just when I said Dead Sea Scrolls?
Wow.
Woo!
Wow, that was
Well, he hasn't showed up. He hasn't showed up yet. He's loading.
knows.
He's loading.
Loading.
So these are written in the Dead Sea Scrolls in Paleo-Hebrew to distinguish the name from the rest of the text, and it is likely that some substitute was used when reading it aloud.
Kip, I'm waiting for you to debunk everything he just said.
She...
Shoot, I was a little late, I guess, because all I heard was written in some of the Dead Sea Scrolls in Paleo Hebrew, and that means it probably there was probably some special concern for the pronunciation of the divine name.
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't
In the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Tetragrammaton is written in Paleo Hebrew rather than the square Aramaic script.
Oh my God, Isaac, you don't live in a church. That's amazing.
Well, my
So-
my green screen
but
background
not-
was the
Oh,
national history. It was the Natural
Oh,
History
oh.
Gallery.
oh,
So a
that's
church
cool.
to science.
Yeah, that's cool that
It's
way.
a
when they do
cathedral
that. That's like
design.
the
Much better.
I was showing a friend the other day a picture of Deansgate in Manchester, which is where I did my PhD, which is I assume just like an very gigantic church. It's beautiful, but yeah, it's fun. So what manuscripts are we talking about? Because there's
It's in general. It is she writes that that's in the Dead Sea Scroll in general. Like there are written in the Dead Sea Scrolls in Paleo Hebrew. Like
but
Is there a manuscript
Sometimes-
that has it written with gold leaf as well, or is that a later thing?
I don't think so.
That sounds very medieval.
There is
There were Orphic texts from Greece written on gold leaf.
No, but isn't there
You're
like
thinking
a
about in the
manuscript
ink,
where
right?
the tetragrammaton itself is written in like maybe it's not gold leaf, maybe it's
No,
just a different color.
with a different. There is one manuscript in the Dead Sea Scrolls that has red ink on it, but it's super random and nobody can figure it out. So
So
and
it's not
you
the
know,
words of Jesus.
Yeah,
No.
that must be it. So, but I feel like I do have to say, how come I can't see the? Oh, right, it's because we're on this channel. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do a couple things.
Okay, it's
at once,
medieval
but-
Jewish. It's medieval
Yeah,
Jewish.
yeah. So-
Manuscripts. I don't think they use the old script, but they do have some illuminated manuscripts where they're written with gold,
Yeah.
like
Right.
Kabbalistic texts and stuff like that.
So, with insofar as the divine name is concerned at Qumran, while that's certainly true, there are a number of. I have too many chat windows open at once. There are a number of manuscripts where the divine name is the Tetragrammaton is written in Paleo Hebrew script. This itself is kind of interesting because this is a revived Paleo Hebrew script, something that happened right in the 2nd century was with the Hasmonean revolution and the establishment of an independent Jewish state for the first time. Also was promoted on the revival of like ancient Hebrew culture, which included the ancient Hebrew language and the ancient Hebrew script. So all the Paleo Hebrew that we see in the Dead Sea Scrolls is like this. It's like this very obviously revived script that is pretty dramatically different from like authentically genuine Paleo Hebrew from the first temple period. But in the scrolls themselves, there are several ways of approaching the divine name. I think in the vast majority of instances, nobody cares. They just write it, right? It's just Yahweh.
Yeah, I mean, she notes that swearing falsely by Yahweh's name is considered a capital crime. That's according to Leviticus 19:12, but also CD 15:1-5. I assume CD refers to some text in the Dead Sea Scroll. And the author of the Manual of Discipline from Qumran opposed swearing by the divine name.
Right, but
CD is the Damascus document.
I don't think
CD is the Damascus document.
Okay.
I mean, by that time they would have meant swearing by saying Adonai.
Yeah, probably. And
this really plays into what I was saying earlier about creating this nation building narrative and feeding back into basically a sort of a somewhat falsified, somewhat hyped national identity and narrative, and sort of repurposing it to hype people up and bring them together now, and taking more mundane incidents or inconveniences and putting them into a dramatic narrative that people can identify with.
Yeah. I mean, it's an example of like a taboo, like a word taboo. You have it in other languages as well, but they had a taboo on saying Yahweh, or and then that became Adonai. But now there's then they kind of developed a taboo against saying Adonai, and then they only say modern religious Jews will only say Adonai and Elohim when they are saying a prayer or quoting something from the Bible. And in a normal conversation, they'll normally use Hashem, which just means the name. Or if they're trying to quote something without saying it properly, they'll say like Elohim instead of Elohim,
or Hakadosh Baruch Hu.
Yeah, it's just like another way of saying God. But like if they're reading out a blessing, but they're not actually saying the blessing for something, they'll say like Baruch Adoshem, which is like Hashem with Adonai.
Or Dadonai, with the Dalet instead of Hey. Aleph.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Sometimes they'll write it differently.
They also read. There's also an abbreviation of Yahweh, which is Hey, just the letter Hey with a.
That's for Hashem. But you also have Yud.
But you also have Dalet. You also have Dalet with apostrophe instead.
That's funny.
Just to avoid the Hey.
Yeah. Even though Hey is just Hashem.
So in the scrolls, most of the time they just write it, right? Yod Hey Vav Hey. Sometimes they use the Paleo-Hebrew for the Tetragrammaton, and I believe that's probably the most frequent replacement. There's a few other really interesting places. 1QS, the community rule is one. One of the manuscripts I worked on or I guess it was just one. Yeah, I worked on a manuscript in my MA called 4Q. It's the 4Q paraphrase of Kings. It's written on papyrus, which is fun, but it uses 4 dots as a replacement. So yeah, there's a variety of things that happen, and like yeah, it probably has to it probably, I would say, evolved into, I don't know if it started as a spoken thing, like we can't say it, or if it my suspicion is most likely it started as a scribal convention that made its way into rhetoric.
There is
But
an established trend in Judaism, and has been for a very long time, of having a rule and then building a fence around the rule and then taking the fence as the rule and then building a fence around the new rule, which was really the fence for the old rule, to the point where it grows to absurd degrees that one offhand comment about boiling a calf in his mother's milk means that if I was catering a Jewish event and I accidentally put my cream cheese bagel on the square plate instead of the round plate, then it had to be smashed and thrown away. Like that was, that's the reality of it.
And there are people that don't even have cream cheese with salmon, because like cheese and fish is somehow equivalent to milk and meat from the same.
Although, and I don't understand how chicken became that, because like surely it would be egg and chicken, which would be the
I think it's just like chicken meat
and miss out the schnitzels. No,
I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying it's the same logic.
There's no.
The schnitzel is good.
Kosher schnitzel doesn't have any milk in it. Oh, you're saying egg?
No, egg.
Oh,
I'm saying that the principle of, because there is actually a rule about don't eat the bird and the young. You must, if you capture the bird, you must leave the young. If you take the young, you must leave the parent. So the same principle could have applied. But the point is, either way, this catastrophically escalating series of taboos around taboos around taboos around taboos till you can't find the beginning anymore. It's very much here in this linguistic thing. And I mean, imagine in a few thousand years, archaeologists trying to figure out what the hell the Jews are talking about when they keep, using this as a substitute for that, and then that as a substitute for the original, and like it just, they'll have no idea what you're talking about. They'll think you worship 700 gods and you won't many of them.
I mean, that's kind of what the Kabbalah is, right?
People say autism and ADHD and OCD are newfangled things. They've been around for a long time. Just look at the Jewish religion.
They were just called Judaism.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, so where was I? Yes, 16 through 18, which is 10 through 12. Becking comments, quote, "Trust in God does not dismiss human beings from taking precautionary measures. After the abstained threat, Nehemiah reorganizes the work on the restoration of the walls. He arms half of his boys, quote-unquote, with spears, shields, archers, and armor, while the other half has to focus on the construction work. The term na'ar, boy or servant, for the members of this group raises 2 questions. First, it is unclear whether all employees of Nehemiah are meant or only a limited elite, according to Williamson and Freed. The text gives no indication. In post-exile text, the word na'al usually refers to a group of servants with a specific assignment directly around the governor. Compare Ditrani, who reads, "These are his servants." The arsenal of weapons is expanded over against verse 13, which is 7 in the Masoretic text, with shilyonim, coats of arms. This word refers to metal breastplates to protect the torso of the warriors. Nehemiah appointed sarim, here supervisors. They will serve as liaison officers between the dispersed groups of workers and were also tasked to warn in case of any threat. The increased preparedness is painted in vivid images. Wherever possible, workers carry a weapon in their free hand, where otherwise they would have girded a sword. On 18, which is 12, the man who sounded the trumpet stayed with me. Hebrew for trumpet is shofar. Becking notes that this instrument evokes the memory of the stories about the period of the judges. The shofar was blown as a starting signal for action, as we see in Judges 3:27, 6:34, and 7:18. Fried notes that it is odd that there is only one that there is only one trumpeter. She asks if Nehemiah is expecting that the enemy will advance from only one spot, and that he knows which it is, and do the workers first have to report a sign of danger to Nehemiah before the warning can be sound?
Yeah, I was wondering if people, because, the reason why the people chose the rapture to be on the 23rd, 24th is because that's the Jewish New Year's festival, or the
yes.
Feast of Trumpets. And like Jews blow the shofar on both of those days.
Yeah.
And sometimes, especially like Chabad, they will actually do it in public because they will go out and seek people, Jewish people, who haven't heard it in the synagogue and be like, oh, do you want us to blow for you? One time when I was a teenager, I went to Camden Town, and like as part of like a school thing, and I blew like 9 times in that area with one of those shofars, and it takes a while. It's like 3 minutes or something each time you blow it, because there's like a whole pattern you're supposed to follow.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if any of the rapture people were in some random place and then they heard the shofar blowing.
Well, admittedly, it tends. I think the fever tends to
love
be
that
mostly
shit.
in the Bible Belt, where I don't think a lot of Jews feel particularly safe and welcome. They're very much fans of your people, but in they support
weird,
you
it's
as
a
the new
creepy
supports the
way.
hanging man.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
very gross.
Yeah,
It's like
in
a
a way.
fetish.
Are you telling? Are you really?
Really.
Yes.
Are you telling me? I mean, I have
Yeah,
to
it's
deal with
almost
this.
like philo.
I had
philo-Semitism
someone at work
is almost a type
hit
of
on me
anti-Semitism.
when I had casually mentioned that I was Jewish. She was a Seventh-day Adventist, and she was
Oh.
like, "Oh my God, my mother always told me that I'd marry a Jew. Are you ready to get married?" And I'm
Holy
like,
Holy
No.
fuck!
No.
What?
it was fucking insane.
Holy shit!
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Because-
I'll take being hit on. That never happened. So I was like, okay, this is nice, thank you, but no. Also, I disagree with absolutely everything you believe, probably. So it was quite.
My ex-husband
something.
wanted a shofar for Christmas.
I mean, the Christians really like the really big, long ones, which I think are really hard to blow. But
It's a ram's horn.
Yeah, I
yeah,
know,
but
I
you know the
think
really long ones. I
got
think
a
it's
little
like a kudu.
Yeah,
or
I
something
mean
like
that's just so fitting.
There are also like long ram's horns.
No, but ram's horns are like this.
Yeah, but there are
they're
like
short
long-
and curved.
They like the
long,
ibex
straight
ones. Yeah,
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 like
yeah,
an
yeah.
ibex or a kudu.
yeah,
Those
Yeah,
are the
yeah,
ones
yeah.
that like they really like to use.
yeah, they do.
Yeah.
If you've
Which is
ever
funny.
seen the Trump prophecy, which
Oh,
I have,
Oh.
but
I couldn't. I
Yeah,
watched the
it's-
review of it. I couldn't sit through the whole thing. It would.
Okay, so we're not talking about that passage in the Quran. So what are you talking about?
Sable eagle.
The Trump prophecy.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
this he's a paramedic. No, he was a firefighter. This poor firefighter suffered PTSD in like 2008, 2007, and then he started seeing things, as people who experience extreme trauma often do, and lots of disturbing shit in the middle of the night. And he was seeing a psychologist and not very happy with the kind of counseling and advice that he was getting. So he went to go see a crackpot instead, which is always smart. And in the course of this, they got him to start journaling and writing down what he was seeing in the night, because maybe these are visions, right? They could just be messages from God. So in one of his visions, I believe he was watching TV, and there was like a big glowing orb, and then Trump was on TV, and a voice said something about this one shall be my leader, the weird prophecy speak. Prophecies are never in like normal speech. They're these super cryptic, weirdly phrased things with the objects and the subjects in the wrong place all the time, right? It's a whole thing. And then so he wrote it down, and he was like convinced like in 2008, the election, that Trump was going to become the president, and it didn't happen. And then in 2012, it didn't happen again. and he kind of like, he still held on hope for this because it was so vivid. But and it finally did happen in 2016. And his therapist, not him so much, but his therapist, cashed in on this and wrote a book and started a whole movement, where with Christians blowing shofarim, and it was a whole thing. But he turned into a podcaster, of course, as they all do, and started, delivering prophecies for gullible.
He declared himself a prophet. He was a major force behind a lot of the hype around 2020 being stolen. Because, of course, the prophecy couldn't be wrong.
Yes.
Like it had been every other time, because I had a night terror while listening to Trump rambling in the middle of the night. And I think that's prophecy. It's the classic case of someone disturbed who is offered real help, but takes the bullshit that makes them feel special. And now we have a lunatic. Huzzah. Anyway,
Yeah.
A horrible movie was made about it. The true story version that had clips of people on YouTube mashed together blowing shofars. There was like 8 different pictures maybe that they tried to make it into a giant collage, and by repeating them. And then just was it the therapist or his wife, the crackpot, or his wife, one of them was completely nuts. I know she was like praying on a plane, like went into the toilet before they took off and started screaming at Jesus about this in that very like charismatic Pentecostal, I'm aura farming my prayer kind of thing. Except it's just creepy and gross.
Yes.
And,
yes. So the movie that was made was actually made by Liberty University film students. That's true. That's a real thing, by the way.
I believe you. No, you're right. I just yeah.
Sorry. I was derailing. But
I believe
shofarim. They the evangelicals love it. And it's all it all plays into this weird fetishizing they do about Judaism. It's the entire they invented a whole religion out of this called Messianic Judaism, which is fucking bullshit. And
Baptist cult pretending to be
pretty
Judaism.
much.
It's
Yes. It's anyways, my good friend Vishanti calls it Jewish cosplay, because like that, honestly, that is that is all that it is. And she is like ultra offended by it. It just
should be.
It's the worst
As
kind.
she should be. It's
Well, maybe not
creepy
the worst
as
kind,
fuck.
but it is a creepy kind of gross cultural appropriation by fucking white people, right? It's just
Yeah. Who
Well,
also
there are
wants all
some
the
other
Jews to convert or
versions
die.
of the same thing.
It's
Like
it's
I think
yeah.
I think there's a Baptist one, which is Messianic Jews. I think come from Baptism, but there's also Jews for Jesus, which is older. I think I don't know where that comes
Oh,
from.
is that the Baptist one? I don't know. One of them is.
I think it's
One of them was started by a Baptist preacher.
I've heard of like Messianics who have like who they were Christian, became Messianic, and now they're like not Christian anymore, but they're also not Jewish. They're like
they're not really
something like that.
They're their own thing. There's a big. I keep getting all sorts of ads in my feed for this outfit called One for Israel, which actually apparently they're like right there in your backyard.
I think they're just I think those are just
What?
Christians, no?
Wait.
They're Israeli Christians who are very determined.
Like they're like an
They're
outreach.
fully evangelical values too, bitching
Yeah,
about
I think
abortion
that's
and a
what they
bunch of
are.
other shit like that.
Mhm.
It's really super creepy and gross. And fetish is the
Yeah.
right word for it, and I mean that in the most derogatory way possible.
Yeah, me too.
Because it's genuinely, it's like, I am a voluptuous woman, okay? I am
Yeah.
delightful and soft to cuddle. But there are also people who will be creepy and gross about that. And there's always also the
mean-
fact that they think they're inherently better than you, which is a weird part of why fetishization is so gross. Like,
I
I
mean,
can find you interesting or your culture interesting or your background. That can be totally great. But if I'm
Yeah.
going to like make it a weird proprietary superiority thing, it's gross. It's gross. Get it away from me.
I mean,
there are
as-
some actual like ethnically Jewish people who are within Messianic Jews, and I think Jews for Jesus have more actual Jewish people in there. I don't agree with like a lot of religious Jews who say that if you are Christian, you're not Jewish anymore, like you're like banished or whatever. I don't think
Well,
I don't think it
was
works
Jesus?
like that.
Jesus was still Jewish, right?
Yeah, but he
Jesus
was never
indeed
Christian.
not a Christian because
Exactly.
that wasn't a
I
thing.
mean, I mean,
Jesus
when
was
I
fine. Like Jesus is going to heaven in Judaism, but if you think that Jesus is if you like Jesus, then you're not.
Mhm.
Nah.
Yeah, I mean, even the earliest followers of Jesus,
Yeah.
I would still call them Jewish. Maybe those would be the only people you could call,
Yeah, as long, I mean, if they
Well,
didn't think,
but-
I think it's.
I mean,
If you don't think that he is God, then I think that Judaism would see that as
yeah.
fine.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that's the whole that's a whole thing, right? Behind Paul's movement is it, guys, you're being too Jewish. This is not, at that point, Christianity, whatever it was called, we have no idea. And whatever they were doing, we
Nazarenes.
also have no idea. Maybe the Nazarenes, yeah, the Nazorians, whatever they were doing, it sure sounds like it was Judaism, basically a form of Judaism. And Paul was like, trying to he was trying to franchise. And
I mean, there's a conspiracy
did.
theory that Paul was a Pharisee agent who was out there to make Christianity different from Judaism, so that people wouldn't get confused between what was real Judaism.
boy,
I feel-
that's a deep cut.
I
Wow.
feel like Christianity was a Jewish cult, and in order to identify itself, it disavowed its origins and then became the persecutor of its origins.
See, I think
Not
I
unprecedented.
don't know if I like the term cult so much, unless I mean it just because our data for the first century indicates that there was a lot of variety,
And some of them were
plurality
very extreme.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
how many
Judaism
Yeah,
also
it just-
developed.
castrated themselves?
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I'm
Yeah,
interjecting,
sorry.
but I think like we're running a lot from Nehemiah. Like,
fair point.
It's all my
I
fault.
also want to throw in before we jump off of that. I should make a video about that because the word cult in describing early Christianity is perfect. Jesus is very much interested in estranging these people from their families. He's estranged himself from his own family. He denied his family, his brothers and his mother, to say that his disciples were his family. He demanded all of their money. He said, "Give me all of it. Don't leave anything left for food or drink. God will take care of you. Give me all your money and I will donate it to the poor," which sounds to me like when our local Reverend Bobby Tilton took in, tens of millions of dollars for an orphanage that didn't exist in Haiti.
Yeah, I think it'd just be difficult to figure out which quotations of Jesus represent the actual Jesus cult.
I
The-
don't.
the way that
but
we-
which one too? Because it's very fragmented and
Yeah.
diverse, and I think it tended to be, whoever was writing put their ideas in Jesus's mouth, and round we go. So the authenticity is questionable in all cases, though obviously in some cases more than others.
We got another comment, this from Duke of Many Things, who says, "How well founded are the claims from the Ethiopian Church to be the oldest Christian denomination?"
Not very.
Well,
they're
Pretty
pretty old.
No. I might have a different, because the way I said this to someone actually just the other day, that it depends on how, like, Rome. If we think about Roman Catholicism or like or the Eastern churches, they're, how much of what we consider their traditional roots stretch back prior to the Great Schism of 1054, when they, for good, but like some of this really has to do again with just our source data for the early part of the medieval period. Even is still, I mean we're just not my area again, right? But it's still, my impression is that there's still some question about how closely we can identify these things with the large churches that emerged from this period. And the Ethiopians are like, the one thing that I think is really interesting about the Ethiopian church is that it was pretty much completely isolated from all other sects of Christianity for such a long time, that it was almost like its own, like it's, would you call that, what do you call it in evolutionary biology, when a population, what,
Speciation.
Like a
You're talking
bottleneck.
like a subspecies?
like when they're like an island, right?
Oh, an island. Okay.
They were almost basically on like an island,
An
cut off
isolate.
from an isolate.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think you're referring to the founder's effect, where an isolated population off of the whole is isolated for a time, and then they only have the genes of their ancestry, so they don't have the entirety of what everybody else has generations later, because everybody else is still intermixing, but this one group isn't.
Yeah, the Ethiopian church is like that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm curious
So it's
about how
almost like a
the...
fossil of this.
Yeah,
Like a
also there's
living
the Jewish
fossil.
Ethiopians, which were also like completely cut off from
Yeah.
medieval Judaism.
The difficulty is knowing how much they changed over the years.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is,
Yep.
we do have sources. People have done like a lot of work on this. So I always I can't pronounce the dude's name, but it's like something Selassie or something like that. And
The
he's done a
emperor?
ton of work on this.
Mhm.
And the thing is, even within like the early Ethiopian church, from like you can point to how like the Catholic Church, for example, has changed and then schismed, right? You can point to that, but it's not like the Ethiopian church didn't have changes, right? Like especially with King Zara Yacob, for example, bringing some big changes to the theology, especially to the canon. So there were quite significant changes, and while the Ethiopian church is quite old, I would still say that the if my dates are right, then the Catholic Church, even in their more standardized, we'll call it, more solid origins, are older than the Ethiopian Church.
Is there not a link between the Ethiopian church and the Coptic church?
Yeah,
Like,
I was going to bring up the
canon-wise,
Coptics,
and
because the
yeah,
Coptics
was like
are a very ancient branch too, and smaller obviously compared to the East-West divide of the Holy Roman Empire. Ugh. But
and there would have been early Christians living in like Alexandria, like much before they got to Ethiopia, I would think.
I'm looking up the person's name because I've completely forgotten it.
In fairness, we are probably
don't listen to me.
speculating on a question that experts are.
Sorry,
dancing back and
I'm getting it
forth.
mixed up with someone else. It was so the scholar that's done a ton of work on this is Getachew Haley is his name. Yeah, he's written a ton on this. Also, the works of Tadasi Tamrat done a lot of work on this as well. So we do have, a lot of work has been done on.
Send us the names.
Church.
So, how about Nehemiah?
Yeah, how about Nehemiah? I wondered. Though I did want to say, I saw the one for Israel thing, and I was like, thanks, but like, no.
Exactly.
That's exactly what
No.
what
Yeah,
I think
there's
it's not. Yeah, no thanks.
Sounds
They're
like
creepier than they look.
Yeah, they love Jews. Okay, so on 19 through 20, which is 13 through 14, Japhet comments, quote, "Yeah, we forgot about that, right? The people to which Nehemiah turns to are the same people mentioned in verse 8, which is 2. The nobles, Chorim, the prefects, Seganim, and the rest of the people. But this time his words are not encouraging, but rather a practical guide on how to behave in emergency. The combination between practical preparations to action and the statement of faith is repeated again. As part of the practical guidance, we expect to hear that with the sound of the shofar, all those who worked in construction had to gather in one spot and prepare for a military conflict with their enemies. But instead of gather there and we will set fight there, Nehemiah says, gather yourselves to us, our God will fight for us. As in his reactions to all the situations so far, Nehemiah makes the practical preparations required from the situation in the most effective way. But the source for his security is not his strength, but the belief in God's help."
It almost seems like a superstition. Like we must always say, of course we should be ready because our God will fight for us. Not because God is going to do anything, but because if you don't give him all the credit for the effectiveness of your preparations, he's going to get pissy and undermine you, and then you'll lose.
On verses 21 through 23, which is 15 through 17, Becking comments, quote, "The last 3 verses are a summary description of the way in which the repairs were performed despite the threat. The main point is that the workers stay at Jerusalem day and night and do not waste time commuting to and from their home. Also, no time is wasted on changing clothes. The language is clearly hyperbolic and suggests that none of the workers ever slept, which of course would be impossible, according to Williamson. The text wishes to emphasize that the work was carried out in an ongoing state of vigilance." Yeah. So I have an optional comment on 21, which is 15. So the verse states that the work began at dawn and continued until sunset. Chazal in Talmud Brachot 2b used this verse to argue that the evening Shema can only be recited after the stars come out. Harrington further notes that most impurities require not only bathing, but a wait for sunset in order for the person to be completely purified, as we see in Leviticus 11 through 15 and Numbers 19. Thus, Chazal defines sunset as the appearance of the first stars at night, as we see in Talmud Megillah 20b.
Oh yeah, the whole bathe with water and you will be unclean till evening refrain.
Yeah. That's if you see 3 stars, then you know it's the next day, sort of thing.
But if the stars at night are big and bright, then you're deep in the heart of Texas.
If it's overcast, does the next day not count?
Then you just use then you have to use a calendar to tell you what time it is. At what time? Yeah.
Okay, and finally, on 23, which is 17, even when he went for water, the Masoretic text reads, Ish shilcho hamayim. If read literally, the phrase reads, each one's weapon the waters, which doesn't really make sense. Even early translations had a hard time understanding what this phrase means. Peshitta reads, did not take off our clothes for a month of days, each like his brother. Vulgate, every man stripped himself when he was to be washed. Several scholars suggested to amend this phrase by replacing the water, hamayim, with his right hand, hayemino, according to Blenkinsop, Myers, Kidner, Steinman, followed by RSB and ESB. This means that the men were always holding a weapon in their right hands. Harrington writes that while this is certainly possible from an orthographic point of view, with the last 2 letters forming a final mem, the practical question arises, did these men ever draw water for drinking and bathing? Instead, following Pseudo-Rashi, she reads, quote, the guards behind me never took off our clothes or our weapons, even at the water, end quote. She writes that the present text is readable, and the interpretation she gives is plausible. More likely, she writes, is that the men attached a sheathed sword to their cloths or belts, and did not remove it even when they went for water. This reading is favored by Japhet, and Fried renders, or even went to the bathroom, and writes that they did not leave their post to even do the most mundane things.
So that's where the pissing against the wall thing comes from?
No, that's something else. That's way
I
later.
know,
That's way before.
I know, I'm joking.
Yeah, so just let me prepare this for the next section.
Yes.
We can just use the pre-recorded version.
No, Peter, don't fuck this up. I actually haven't played in a while, so I can't, like... I'll just do it. Guess who's talking about Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Guess who's talking about Jesus. It's Bede.
It's always Bede.
It's always Bede, because he's the only Christian commentator who wrote Nehemiah. Who wrote about Nehemiah. You know what? He wrote Nehemiah. Fuck it.
Yeah, I like the interpretation of he wrote Nehemiah.
Yeah. So, the Samaritans, exhorted by Sanballat to oppose the construction of the wall, openly represent the heretics who are separated from the unity of Christ and the church by schisms or wicked works. The sole refuge against all enemies of the church is prayer to God and the zeal of teachers. Against all the enemies of the church, we must, according to the apostle, take up the armor of God so that we may able to, quote, resist on the evil day and stand perfect in all things, end quote, Ephesians 6:13. We must keep a constant watch lest we may fall back into sins through the devil's seduction. Yes.
I have a little joke for this past chapter, but it's maybe a bit too much of an in-joke. You have to know about London's transport system. Did the ancient Israelite commuters use the Jubilees line?
No.
There's a line in London called the Jubilee line because of the Queen's Jubilee.
I'm sure they did.
Well, makes more sense than Elephant and Castle.
Now I want pub food.
Okay, so
yes.
are we moving on to
Yes.
continue
Please.
Nehemiah?
Yes.
Who's reading, Kip?
Shall we have a...
All right. Where are we? Sorry. I didn't even-
5.
I didn't even have
Chapter
that
5.
text
You may have 5.
I'm just going to slide over from 1 Kings chapter 18 to Nehemiah 5. There was a great outcry by the common folk and their wives against their brother Jews. Some said, "Our sons and daughters are numerous. We must get grain to eat in order that we may live." Others said, "We must pawn our fields, our vineyards, and our homes to get grain to stave off hunger." Yet others said, "We have borrowed money against our fields and vineyards to pay the king's tax. Now we are as good as our brothers, and our children as good as theirs. Yet here we are subjugating our sons and daughters to slavery. Some of our daughters are already subjected, and we are powerless, while our fields and vineyards belong to others." It angered me very much to hear their outcry and these complaints. After pondering the matter carefully, I censured the nobles and the prefect, saying, "Are you pressing claims on loans made to your brothers?" Oops, I went too fast. My fingers were excited. Where was I? Yes, it angered me, and after pondering, yes. Then I raised a large crowd against them and said to them, "We have done our best to buy back our Jewish brothers who were sold to the nations. Will you now sell your brothers so that they must be sold back to us?" They kept silent, for they found nothing to answer. So I continued, "What you are doing is not right. You ought to act in a God-fearing way so as not to give our enemies, the nations, room to reproach us. I, my brothers, and my servants also have claims of money and grain against them. Let us now abandon those claims. Give back at once their fields, their vineyards, their olive trees, and their homes, and abandon the claims for the 100 pieces of silver, the grain, the wine, and the oil that you have been pressing against them." They replied, "We shall give them back and not demand anything of them." we shall do just as you say. Summoning the priests, I put them under oath to keep this promise. I also shook out the bosom of my garment and said, so may God shake free of his household and property any man who fails to keep this promise. May he be thus shaken out and stripped. All the assembled answered, Amen, and praised the Lord. The people kept this promise. Furthermore, from the day I was commissioned to be governor in the land of Judah, from the 20th year of King Artaxerxes until his 32nd year, 12 years in all, neither I nor my brothers ever ate of the governor's food allowance. The former governors who preceded me laid heavy burdens on the people and took from them for bread and wine and more than 40 shekels of silver. Their servants also tyrannized over the people, but I, out of the fear of God, did not do so. I also supported the work on this wall. We did not buy any land, and all my servants were gathered there at the work. Although there were at my table between Jews and prefects 150 men in all, beside those who came to us from surrounding nations, and although what was prepared for each day came to 1 ox, 6 select sheep, and fowl, all prepared for me, and at 10-day intervals, all sorts of wine in abundance. Yet I did not resort to the governor's food allowance, for the king's service lay heavily on the people. Oh my God, remember to my credit all that I have done for this people. You know, I don't know, it's just me, but when I read Nehemiah, when I think of Nehemiah, I can't help but picture Richard Carrier. It's the way I see it.
I didn't
Richard
know you
Carrier.
hated Nehemiah that much. It's very,
I don't
you
hate
know,
him, okay?
I, Moses, am the most meek and humble of all.
Yeah, it's like that, right?
Yeah.
So,
Did you not know that in addition to being beautiful and brilliant, I am also delightfully humble and courteous?
Hmm.
It's very much that energy.
so much so.
So much humble brag.
Okay, so I'll start with verse 1. Nehemiah separates the people into 2 groups, the people and their wives, in Hebrew Ha'am v'Nashehem, and their Jewish brothers, in Hebrew Achehem HaYehudim. Pseudo-Rashi and Kimchi wrote that, quote, the people and their wives, end quote, represent the poor people of Judah, and the Jewish brothers were the rich. Japhet notes that this view is also shared by Blenkinsop and for Philippe Guillaume, who argued that there wasn't an economic crisis of the entire district's population, but rather a temporary currency crisis, quote-unquote. She also notes that Fleischmann links the reform to the construction of the wall and believes that the economic situation described was not a natural result of mobilization for the construction of the wall, but rather a deliberate action by the nobles and rulers, quote-unquote, of the Judean district, who opposed Nehemiah, the construction of the wall, and the ideology underlying it. According to him, quote, they deliberately brought about the severe economic crisis, which they nurtured to remove popular support for Nehemiah and thwart his work, end quote.
I mean, honestly, it sounds like the local rulers were lining their pockets a bit too much, which was very much something that happened. You have the satraps and, you know, whoever else, you have this hierarchy. The Babylonians and the Persians obviously did it a bit differently, but you've got, you know, local governors who are just supposed to keep everything going and keep the tribute coming to the main center. And there is a very good opportunity there for a greedy bastard to get a little too greedy. And, you know, if you get the people who are oppressed by that and you say, hey, I'm not going to have you over a barrel quite as bad as the last guy, they will be on your side because, you know, you get a bit of a Robin Hood situation going on. I'll be right back. I need to get a drink and I cannot take any more Bible without weed. So,
Okay, on verse 3, Fried comments, quote, this may represent a second group of people, a group who held land, but because of drought their crop had failed, and now had nothing left to either plant or eat. Their land may have been too small to provide for their needs, or they may have been relatively well off until the famine, but now were forced to take out mortgages to obtain grain to eat, and probably also seed to plant. interest rates were harsh, usually 20% per year, usually expressed as, quote, every month 1 shekel of silver will be added to 1 mina, end quote, where 12 shekels equal 1/5 of a mina. Interest rates varied widely, however, and rates as low as 10% and as high as 26% have been recorded. It was not the land itself that was mortgaged, however, since this was inalienable, but rather the usufruct. Even so, interest rates were not compounded. There was no interest on the interest. On verse 5, Harrington comments, quote, now therefore is often used in a judicial sense as the culmination point of a case, or the judge's decree. See Micah 6:13. The people use legal rhetoric here to emphasize that the wealthy landowners and the poor builders are of the same flesh. That is, not only of the same community, but of the same kin. They all have the same credentials to be true Jews, in Hebrew Yehudim, the term preferred in the Nehemiah memoir, compare verse 1. Authentic genealogy, not amount of wealth or prestige, was the identifying bond for this community. The same is true for Ezra's descendants of the exiles, in Hebrew Bnei Hagolah. The assonance of the terms our brothers, Achinu, and others, Acherim, creates a sardonic pun in this verse. Both the elite and the poor are related by blood, but the wealthy are treating their fellow Israelites as if they were others, that is, outsiders, in verse 7. On verse 8, we have brought back our fellow Jews who were sold to the Gentiles. Fried comments, quote, we have brought back, ransomed, redeemed those of our brothers, our fellow Judeans, who had been sold to the nations round about. But who exactly does this refer to? Were these Judeans sold into debt slavery under the previous governors of Judah? Or does it refer to those who had been living among the nations of the diaspora since the time of Nebuchadnezzar, and who were now released to return home? Buying back the Judeans who had been sold abroad shows solidarity with their fellow Judeans. It may also refer to a non-voluntary return of Judeans to Judah. On 10 and 11, Harrington comments, quote, the resolution of this issue goes beyond relinquishing interest. Nehemiah orders these creditors to give back the fields, orchards, the houses, as well as the interest. That is, to forgive the whole loan. Isaac, are you smiling? I said,
Yeah.
orchards, what is it?
Orchards.
Now it's fine to say ch as
So
cha,
it's
but not this.
it's orchards if it's talking about like gardens of trees or whatever. But if you're talking about the flower, which is spelled slightly different, it's orchid.
Fuck you. So the situation is not unheard of in antiquity. In Athens, Solon, like Nehemiah, remedied a similar situation by insisting that creditors relinquish their rights to repay a debtor. Okay, sorry, I blanked out. I'll repeat that again.
I have
In
a copy of
Athens,
Solon's
sorry.
laws, by the way. So, like, if you want me to pull up the actual law, I can.
Hey. Sorry.
Okay, so in Athens, Solon, like Nehemiah, remedied a similar situation by insisting that creditors relinquish their rights to repayment of debts. Nehemiah includes himself among the creditors in the sense that he too has been lending money, but leading by example, he is willing to cancel the debt. He and his brothers will treat the community as kin. Nehemiah cannot simply be suggesting that the interest be cancelled, because he never was charging interest. Rather, he is willing to forgive the entire debt. This view is supported by verse 11, which clearly orders the creditors to return whole fields, vineyards, and homes in addition to money exacted for interest from the 3 money crops, grain, grapes, and olives. This measure is not an argument against commercial banking or mortgage practices, which enable the modern citizen to purchase a home and other expensive commodities, but must be understood in light of the kingship loyalties of ancient Israel.
Well, to this day, Christianity kind of inherited from Judaism and Islam as well. Like lending with interest to your brother, as in to a fellow from the same religion, is frowned upon. And
Christianity got over it eventually, but for a long time, yeah, that's why the Jews ended up being bankers in medieval Europe.
yeah,
'Cause
yeah,
they were outsiders and thus could lend at interest to you.
yeah. So Christians couldn't lend with interest to each other, and Jews couldn't lend with interest to each other, but Jews could lend to Christians, and Christians could lend to Jews, and therefore, the majority the Christians needed people to be able to borrow money from people, and the Jews were like, yeah, we'll lend you money if you give us a little bit on the top when you give it back to us, and that turns into banking. So
actually, I recently learned that the name for bank comes from the German word for bench, because I guess when this started, Jews weren't even allowed to rent a storefront. So a Jewish man would literally sit on a bench and do his business there. And, over the centuries, they became so good at this that some of the, it went from keeping a tally of money against pogroms so you could escape, to the kings and heads of Europe coming with hat in hand to say, please, may I have some more money for my ballroom, which is ironic, but unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't an ideal situation because of what would happen eventually. So it's not like, it's not like, oh, maybe we should do this. We'll make lots of money out of it. It's more like, there's not that many jobs that we are allowed to do.
Exactly. They weren't allowed to sell. It was that racist thing that I didn't even know about for most of my life, where like the racist person won't touch a thing that's touched by whoever it is they're racist against. And like, so they do that with basically the only thing Jews could do to get money outside of their own community was banking. So some of them got good at it after a few centuries, as one does.
Yeah. Though,
and it's not so big anymore, people. It's not like the Rothschilds are still rich these days. There are a few that are, they're up there and they're noble and have some names. And I think there's like a British nobility, like
I will
or something. But
I will say that the whole thing about Jews economy and stuff is kind of like disproved after what the idiots in my government said. And the whole I call this Bezrat Hashem economy, literally in the help of God. Because
hey,
fair point.
You gotta relax.
No,
this is America. You can't criticize Israel.
I mean, Americans literally have God on their money.
Criticize Israel. Idiots. No, but fair point. Like, it's, I mean, that's how racism works, right? You put people into a corner. They've only got one way out. A few of them manage to get pretty good at the one thing they're allowed to do. And then they criticize you for it and turn it into a bad racial trait. I think something similar happened with black folk and fried chicken, which I never understood because it's fucking delicious. But apparently that's
everybody
a thing.
likes fried chicken. It's literally what's the best food from your country? It's probably going to be some sort of fried battered thing. Whether it's fried fish
if
or
the aliens
chicken.
come and they want to extinguish us and we need to provide a meal that convinces them that we're worth keeping around, I hope there's fried chicken because that shit is delicious.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so I'll continue with verses 12 and 13. Becking comments, quote, "The creditors accept the proposal of Nehemiah. Their positive reaction is confirmed with an oath to the priests. Rightly, Williamson points out that the text does not give rise to seeing the remission of debt as part of a ceremony to renew the covenant. Nehemiah 5 lacks covenant terminology, and the mechanism of redistribution is mainly to be understood as, and this is German, Gebot der Stunde, or imperative of the hour. The episode ends with a sign act by Nehemiah. With this act, he underlines his message in a non-verbal way. Symbolically, he depicts a curse, and as he shakes the dust out of the folds of his robe, God will do with all who will not obey the oath. With the word Amen, the whole community confirms the procedure, and all do so is stated. And all do so as is stated, sorry. On verse 14, governor in the land of Judah. Hebrew for governor is pecha. The word used in this phrase is pecham, their governor, as was in Septuagint, but Williamson writes that pecham is an anomalous form and would be spelled pachatam if the meaning their governor was intended. Thus, several commentators take pecham here to be a scribal error. The word is an Akkadian loanword, bel pichati or pachati, referring to a governor. Becking notes that the word can refer to the leader of a larger area, such as the governor of the satrapy Ebir Nari in Ezra 5:3. But here it refers to the governor appointed by the Persians about a much smaller unit, the province of Yehud. He writes that the narrator thus increases the importance of Nehemiah within the Persian administrative hierarchy.
I wonder actually if the lack of ceremonial language and referring to the covenant gives some hint as to when this whole thing about not lending at interest started. Because of course, every time they introduce it, they always say, well, this was always done this way. It's back to the, write it into the old laws that was totally legit and that's original. But he doesn't bring it up that the usury itself is against the laws and the traditions. And I'm wondering if that's a bit of a hint as to when this came out. Because obviously it's an act of generosity to give back everything you had loaned, like the money you had loaned and then not ask for it back. But the usury, he also takes issue with that in passing. So,
But I mean, is usury like explicit in this chapter, or is it just implied? Because it seems to be also like just taking advantage of poor people by lending them stuff that wasn't going to help them.
Well, it's only mentioned in passing, at least in my translation. I did hear it. You are exacting usury from your own countrymen, and then it gets into more detail, and it's mostly just about the principle as opposed to interest. Right. So, I mean, it could have just been a derogatory term in that context, but.
Wait, which verse is that? I want to see what the Hebrew says.
Okay. Sorry. Put it down, of course. The exclamation at the beginning, the second half, it's verse 7, 5-7.
Oh.
I ponder in my mind, accuse the nobles.
Noshim. Yeah, the Hebrew is Noshim. אתם נושים ואתן עליכם קהילה גדולה.
But it doesn't have the Hebrew word for interest.
Okay, well that's good to know.
I think it's just like pressing claims.
But I think the meaning here is like lending on interest.
Oh, so it's not just like you lend them money and then demand they pay you back before they're able to actually make anything out of it.
Yeah, I mean the same word appears also in 1 Samuel 22:2 and Isaiah 24:2 in I think in the sense of like creditors or to be a creditor. Yeah.
Like if you lend some money to someone and they lose it or whatever, you're now going to them and being like, you owe us money, now you need to become a slave or something rather than
and that was
trying to help
selling
them.
off people was a thing, like or selling off your children into servitude.
Yeah.
Sunday, where's my money, bitch?
I think it's Leviticus or
money,
where it talks about if a man is if someone is so indebted, he can like sell his daughter into servitude to pay off his debt or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's Exodus 21 or 22.
Yeah, Exodus 21 is is that passage. I mean, it's not so much. I don't know if Exodus 21 doesn't spell out the. It just says if you're gonna sell your daughter, do this. So.
Right. So there was that system in place. So it seems more like that Nehemiah is kind of like saying like you are lending him money and then demanding he pay you back and treating him like someone who owes you money and then forcing him into selling his children into slavery or whatever. So I don't know if the malpractice is interest or if it's just demanding repayment.
Just the brutality of holding people over a barrel who are having to sell their means of future subsistence in order to subsist now, because some people were pointing out in the comments, I have no food, let me sell the fields where I grow my food. Well, growing takes time and I'm hungry now, so you can't go that long without food.
And if you're a rich person, you instead of demanding that the poor person sells their field to you, you should be saying, no, let me give you money, keep your field as I don't know what the word is, collateral or whatever, and then you pay me a little bit more from that field every year or something. They weren't really helping the poor; they were trying to get as much money right now as possible.
Mhm.
That's what it seems to be saying. So maybe that's why it doesn't quote an older law about usury.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
should note
it
from.
seems to have-
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I just meant it seems to have not been explicit usury in that way,
Mm.
in the traditional way. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so she notes that according to the law, strict rules apply to creditors who asked for a pledge or deposit to front a loan. While asking for a deposit was quite legal, one could not take essential items, such as a millstone for grinding grain, or as collateral, nor could one take a coat overnight since that deprived a person of basic protection against the elements, as we see in Exodus 22, 26, and 27, and Deuteronomy 24, 6 through 13. The antiquity of this practice is reflected on a Hebrew ostracon from the 7th century BCE. The inscription is a letter which tells of a poor farmer whose garment had been taken by a creditor and not returned.
Mm.
Yeah, I
Yes.
do remember learning something about how, like, if you take a garment as collateral, you have to return it to them every night, so they could use it to
Oh.
keep warm. But then you
So
would
you
take
can
it back.
hold during the day.
Wow.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So they even though they've given you this thing as collateral, you're not allowed to actually hold. You're actually allowed to. You have to like lend it to him so he can use it to keep warm, and then you can. But he doesn't get it back fully until he's.
Let me lend you your night robe.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
No. Okay,
nights
so
are
on.
cold.
Sorry. Okay, on verse 15, to emphasize his behavior towards the Judeans, Nehemiah contrasts himself to those who ruled before him, and emphasizes two matters related to each other: the payments to the governor with food and money, and the tyranny of the servants, in Hebrew Na'arim. Japhet notes that Chazal denounced Nehemiah because of this comparison, and saw his words as censoring the governors who preceded him, including Daniel, who was greater than him. They claim that this was the reason as to why this book is not named after Nehemiah. Recall that Ezra-Nehemiah was originally called just Ezra, even though, according to them, he wrote most of it. Fried notes that it is often suggested, like Alt, that Nehemiah was the first governor of Judah, and that prior to his governorship, Judah was not independent, but part of Samaria. She writes, however, that this is a misunderstanding of Ezra 4, 7 through 9, and is belied by the present verse. She writes that she writes that the previous governors of Judah included Sheshbatzar, Zerubbabel, and, quote, Achiab, a 6th century BCE governor of Yehud, end quote, according to Lipschitz and Vanderhooft, though I couldn't really confirm this. On verse 17, Harrington comments, quote, in addition to feeding 150 Jews and officials on a regular basis, Nehemiah also fed guests from Gentile areas. The ethnicity of the latter is unclear. Does this group include Gentiles, or is this reference to Jews who have come from Gentile areas, for example, Jews who had been redeemed for debt, slavery, among Gentiles? Pseudo-Rashi suggests that these people were Gentile proselytes, but the phenomena of conversion to Judaism does not appear to be an option in EN. With a strong emphasis on group boundaries elsewhere in the text, it is most likely that the people regularly boarded by Nehemiah were Jews. The identity of those coming from surrounding areas is less certain. Perhaps Jews at risk or Gentile officials in a diplomatic role. Williamson provides the following translation, quote, as for the Jews, there were 150 officials together with any who came to us from surrounding nations at my table, end quote. He suggests that all of the regular diners were Jewish, but that they were joined by, quote, a steady stream of foreign diplomatic visitors such as characterized all government activity down to the present day, end quote.
I suppose there's some element of like that is fair in some way. There would have been messengers and local officials that would have to, communicate. It would be very impolite not to feed them. So,
yeah. On verse 18, the extravagance of Persian banquets is attested by Greek writers. Fried notes that Heraclides of Cyme or Cyme, I don't know, Cyme, describes the daily banquets of Artaxerxes II as including 1,000 animals, including horses, camels, oxen, asses, deer, many birds, Arabian ostriches, geese, and cocks, as we see in Athanasius, Dipnosophists 4145a. She writes that evidence from the Persepolis fortification tablets, dated to the reign of Darius I, argue for the veracity of Heraclides' account. There are 82 texts that use the phrase consumed before the king or poured before the king, each listing a wide variety of foodstuffs, including animals in huge amounts that were approved by the royal treasurer. Moreover, individual tablets mention single requisitions of high quantities of food, including 1,224 heads of sheep and goats, 126,100 quarts of flour, and 12,350 quarts of wine, etc.
Yeah, I mean, depending on like the nation or the dynasty in charge, there would be either be a lot of waste because you have to present a certain amount of dishes before the royalty, but sometimes they would cook lots of food and have it on the table, and the king would eat whatever, but then it would kind of get distributed through the through the system.
You'd have all the officials and the courtiers, and then basically the whole household would eventually eat off that table. It's just the king gets the first and choice.
Yeah,
I mean, they have the same thing in Versailles with Louis and Marie Antoinette. It was something of a showpiece where they would eat first, and then all the courtiers would basically take whatever was left, which was quite a bit because it was Versailles. They made an obscene amount of food. But it wasn't just, the king's table didn't just feed the king. It fed the whole frickin' palace and everyone visiting.
Yeah. It's almost like they had the rich people should do charity, but like they didn't consider charity something that you should go out and do. It was almost like if you want to do charity, you kind of need to like invent a reason for doing something. And then eventually the poor people would benefit from it. Let's make a market, and the rich people will sell their stuff to the market, and then the market will sell stuff, and then the profits will go to the poor, sort of thing. Yeah. I mean, depending on the country, I guess.
Yeah. And finally, on verse 19, Becking comments, quote, "The accountability ends with a short prayer to God. Nehemiah asks God to commemorate him, Zachar, because of the good he has done for this people. It is remarkable that both here and in 1331, the call to remembrance, the somewhat unusual addition letova, for goodness, is placed. Remembrance seems by definition beneficial, quote-unquote, but remembering evil occurs a single time in the Hebrew Bible, as we see in 1 Kings 17:18 and also Psalm 79:8. The verb zachar appears in the Hebrew Bible more than 250 times. Both God and human beings can be subject of memorial. The call to God to remember a human being focuses on the hopes that this person may experience immediate and tangible consequences of God's interference. In fact, it is a petition for divine blessing for further life, as we see in Genesis 8:1, Exodus 32:13, and 1 Samuel 1:19. In the case of Nehemiah, he asks if God wants to acknowledge him as the earthly instrument that sends and executes God's plans, end quote.
Yeah, they didn't have the concept of an afterlife beyond, the fortune your descendants would have at this time, right?
I think so.
Sorry, they didn't have what?
I'm thinking they didn't have a concept of an afterlife. Beyond your lineage and passing on good fortune to your line.
I thought the Jewish Sheol was the same as the Greek Hades, where everybody, doesn't matter if you were good or bad, everybody goes to the land of the dead to be dead.
Well,
but
Sheol
these things
is
have
just
evolved.
like the grave, right? I think that's kind of where most scholars are right now. But either way, they did, like, if you were a good Jew, obviously, after the Day of Judgment, you would get an afterlife.
Yeah. I meant more
that
this.
Is
At
this
the time
where
when this was
you
written, or
I mean, I think
was
even
referring to.
some of the even some of the prophets were talking about it, I think.
is the Jewish afterlife comparable to the Muslim afterlife, where you come crawling out of your graves on the Day of Judgment?
Well, the Muslim afterlife also has a hell.
Yeah,
The
it
Jews
developed
do have,
over time.
the rolling under the ground and popping out at Israel thing for the last day that we were discussing the fun stories.
Yeah,
but I wasn't meaning Judaism as a
yeah.
whole. I'm saying that initially they didn't have that concept of eternal soul, and then at some point, it morphs and warps, and I'm kind of wondering where in the evolution we are in the text.
Yeah, it makes sense that maybe not like, oh, when you die, you straight away have like a judgment, and then you either go to one place or another place. But yeah, it does make sense that they would have had like some sense of a soul kind of living in the grave, or staying in the grave until
Japhet also notes that the scholar who likes children said that the Zachira, or the remembrance, is also a example of pseudo-classicism, which is using late biblical Hebrew in the form of the classical biblical Hebrew without the original meaning of this form.
Okay.
I wish that narrowed it down more.
Yeah. I mean, in modern Judaism, you still have some groups that kind of will talk about an afterlife, and others that don't really talk about it, and others that kind of will talk about like hell as being something you need to avoid constantly, and hold it over your head with like about how be good, otherwise you'll go to Gehenna or whatever.
Well, and I mean, let's face it, humans are perfectly capable of creating hell on earth, as we've demonstrated so many times.
Yeah, but I don't think there's any Jewish group that believes in an eternal hell like Christianity. It's normally a like cleansing ritual.
And I've heard that even among some Christians, universalists, it's more of a cleansing thing. The only hell I will accept, for the record, is Hell's Bells hell. So JC Lynn's version of hell, and I'm not saying I'd work at the help desk, but I might sub in occasionally. I'd like to sass and then trapdoor some people.
Yeah, I do like the idea that Judaism has a hot hell and a cold hell. Gehenna of snow and a Gehenna of fire or something like that.
Yeah,
that's kind of hilarious.
Got a couple comments to read. Trevor Wright said, how did Nehemiah manage to rebuild Jerusalem's wall in just 52 days, despite political opposition, limited resources, and the scale of the task?
Magic.
I mean, I think we jumped the gun a bit, right? I mean, that's like I think it's like later on we'll be talking about how he completed the wall so fast.
Oh, don't give me any spoilers.
Yeah, I mean, he already gave you. What the fuck do you expect me to do?
No spoilers for this ancient book.
Yeah,
we also don't know how damaged it was.
Yeah,
how many thousands of years has it been around?
Was it completely
it leveled,
to the ground?
Yeah. It would have been crushed in some places at least. But the truth of the matter is, I mean, we've already pointed out this narrative is historically adjacent at best. So.
And then we've got another comment again from Duke of Many Things, who says, Tomer, is your commentator referring to the imprecatory prayer? Maybe that's a misspelling. I'm not sure.
Nope, that's correct. Imprecatory is a thing.
I have never seen that word before in my life. All right. So the imprecatory prayer calling down the judgment of God?
Yeah, I mean, I think he says that basically. He writes, the call to God to remember a human being focuses on the hope that this person may experience immediate and tangible consequences of God's interference.
Yeah, they love doing that.
Oh, okay, so
especially in the woes.
Yeah.
So imprecatory means calling down evil or misfortune upon someone. So it's kind of like a hex,
form of a curse
blessing.
Yeah.
In fairness, half of their blessings for themselves are cursing someone else.
I mean, but that's kind of like something you would expect from ancient Near Eastern priests to the deity. You see, Harrington notes Nebuchadnezzar II's prayer to Marduk, which reads, "O Marduk, my lord, do remember my deeds favorably, so good deeds. May these my good deeds be always before your mind." So,
I want to read one other comment.
Apparently there's a certain in the book of Psalms, there is a collection of psalms that are known as the imprecatory psalms.
That sounds right. But the comment, Aaron, sorry.
Oh, yeah. So that's from a Pendragon, who says, I just closed it. Who says, was great seeing Lawrence and Aaron on the line. I just wanted to
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
That was fun.
absolutely.
Okay,
There
I was happy to see you in the chat.
Right, yeah, for a little bit there.
Who, me? I
Yeah.
was. Yeah. Towards the end, I was in my own stream yesterday, so I was late coming in. When it comes to the War Scroll and reconstructing fragments, you can go on all day. So
Right.
I was a little late coming, but yeah, no, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I
hope
think
I had
actually
got,
during the part that Kip came in is the caller that we had where I was translating something from Luke.
Mm-hmm.
I was worried that we wouldn't get any callers. I kind of thought that just on the general presentation for the way that we present Lawrence, and I'm thinking people who believe in the Bible are not going to want to talk to a Bible scholar just flat out. So I had a handful of questions I was going to ask him
Mhm.
if we didn't have any callers to talk to. And if you don't mind, I'm going to run through them really quick. There's like 10 of them. I first asked Lawrence to explain how pistis, because this was used against me in a debate, how pistis it reflects the idea that the English version of faith being a belief that is not based on evidence, because somebody tried to paraphrase that, saying that faith was a belief against all reason or something like that, which was not the way I phrased it. Then the next question was the next misconception about the Bible was that the Bible is the Word of God. I got to ask Lawrence that one, but then I couldn't get to the rest of them. The Bible is infallible, without error or contradiction. The first book of the Bible is Genesis, the oldest and first book ever written. Because I've heard that a
So
bunch.
dumb. That's so dumb. I don't even think I've heard that claim that it's the oldest book ever written.
I mean,
Have
you
admittedly,
not?
those are people who
No.
Jerry
I mean,
Falwell
it's
got
right there. It's the
you know,
first one, right?
right.
In the Bible.
Yeah.
They just
I mean, I
started
saw.
They started at the start and they finished at the end. That's how that works.
The
Right.
next
you know,
I saw.
the
I
Greek
saw.
word Genesis, beginning, birth,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh.
I saw a core
Mhm.
question that said something about Genesis being 10,000 years old.
That's ridiculous.
And
Nice. I love
Yeah,
maybe
it.
that's
with the-
based on like
God, I'm
younger
gonna pee.
10,000 years is the age of the universe, but whatever.
The next one I went to was the historic account of the Exodus was recorded in around 1500 BC.
Well, we did talk about that one on the actual show. And I did
Several
point
episodes.
out that if it happened at the time that they say that it happened, then they would have been fleeing Egypt to Egypt because
Mhm.
Canaan was controlled by Egypt.
You also did actually touch on the next one, which is Genesis and the other 4 books of the Pentateuch were all written by Moses himself.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I put in another one that, okay, if the oldest book of the Bible is not Genesis, then it must be the book of Job.
Also, no.
That I have at least heard some
Yeah.
arguments for that are based in at least some attempts at scholarship. It's much better to argue that than to argue that Genesis is the oldest book. And that's only the people who listened to Jerry Falwell when he said that God, typewriter brained the Bible uncut into the literally just, automatic writing did that shit in directly into the prophets, and then they transcribed it perfectly, and then now it's magic.
I'm almost disappointed that we got callers because I was loving the questions that I had for Lawrence because I knew they would be so much fun for him to answer. Like Isaiah 40:22 proves that even 2,800 years ago, the prophets of God knew that the world was a sphere.
Don't even get
Yeah,
don't even get me
yeah.
started. Don't even get me started. Go watch my hour-and-a-half long video on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that old. They should have known it was a sphere at that point, but they didn't.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
they
Well,
did
the
not
thing
believe
is,
in it.
the information didn't, travel everywhere yet.
And then if
Hey,
we
but they-
needed some time to talk, the next misconception was the Bible contains hundreds of prophecies
Oh
that
my
were all fulfilled by Jesus.
Was it that he will come back during
Including-
a tumultuous time of wars and rumors of wars? Because that's totally happening 100% of the time
Yeah, always.
of all of human history.
I mean, if you go through their list of 100 prophecies, it's hilarious.
There's also the prophecies that are misquoted. Like one author would say, "Oh, this is a prophecy from Isaiah," but oh, sorry, it's actually from Zechariah. You got it wrong.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this next
You
one
know-
is this is going to be especially funny to Bible scholars, but this is one I have actually heard multiple times. Christianity is the world's oldest religion, preceding all Greek, Persian, Indian, and Egyptian mythology.
What?
No, Islam is.
That's wild.
No, yeah. No, it's Mormonism. You know,
Right, yeah.
Joe Smith, the white guy with a suit and tie, he's the originator of all of that.
And the last one in my list was the Bible is messages of wisdom and morality that consistently show how God is love.
Oh my god.
May such love never find me.
I'm sorry that we didn't get to these because there actually were callers.
Lots of callers and questions. Oh, that's
Well,
good.
did you get all of those from one person, like in an
No,
email?
those are Aaron's questions. Oh, did Aaron get? Did Aaron get?
Yeah,
all
yeah.
those questions?
Aaron.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I bet I'm sorry.
Aaron.
I have to like.
Yeah, these are
Aaron, did
things
you get like
Christians have
like
told-
one person?
Multiple Christians have told me each of these things.
Wow.
I had a pastor.
But you do
tell
live in
me-
Texas.
Yeah. I had a pastor tell me when I finally confessed to my doubts and talked about my burgeoning atheism, that we didn't have to believe that the Bible was inerrant in its current form, rather that it was inerrant in its original form. And we don't have its original form. And I was just thinking, so we have to believe the thing that is demonstrably false. So if we adapt it to X1 instead of X, then we can still believe it, even with the sure, yeah. That's how we find true things.
So let's all
Yeah.
quickly give a quick hello to Hivesci, who has raised
Hi,
us.
Sai. Hi.
Who have rated
What do you
chat?
say to the comment that? What do you say to the comment that says that Judaism is from the Stone Age?
From the
I don't-
Stone Age.
That's wild. Wow.
I'd say
From the
I mean,
Stone Age.
From the Stone Age.
That's a bit extreme. I don't know. Maybe they meant metaphorically, but the people that think that, I mean, even Bronze Age is wrong, right?
I mean, well,
Oh
there are
God!
some
No,
things
because-
that are
Even
from-
Iron Age is wrong.
Oh,
Well, at that point, you could at least argue about it because, like,
I mean, depending on I don't
Is
know.
it
mean,
not
Iron
true
Chariot.
that is it
Pardon?
not true that some of the works in the Bible do hail from the Bronze Age and then others from the
No. I would say there's nothing from the
Nothing
Bronze
from
Age.
the Bronze Age?
Nothing from the Bronze Age. The oldest text scholars tend to think. I mean, we got a few, right? We've got Judges 5, we've got Exodus 14, 15. I can never remember which one it is. We've got
the
Like-
Song of the Sea.
Genesis 49 is pretty fucking old, and
oh, okay.
Deuteronomy 32 is very old.
Song
The
of the
oldest,
Sea.
yeah, and that is Exodus 15, right? It's not Exodus 14's the narrative. Yes,
I think
it starts with the
15,
narrative
it's
and then it's
15.
15. So, but I think the majority opinion is that the Song of the Sea is the oldest of all of them.
Yeah.
And they would I think the earliest that the actual scholars would date it is like 1100 possibly.
I mean, or 13th. I've seen some
13th
who say
century,
there's 13th
1200,
century as well.
yeah.
Okay, so
The
let me make
original
sure I
comment-
understand this because this might be relevant to somebody's understanding. Are you saying, did I understand it correctly? And I want to do that. I want to ask this while I've got Lawrence and Kip both here. That the oldest work in the Bible, the only the oldest segment of the Bible is 1100 BCE.
Or 1200, or maybe not even that old. Like I don't know if I would. I'm not confident
It
that
might
I would.
be as old as.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
you
you could
have
put
to
it in-
remember that these things are like, before they were included in any larger
These
composition.
are
And
pieces of
also,
something that was later included in a later or a
Yeah.
more recognized.
yeah, and also even just from a linguistic perspective here, right? Like one of the reasons why there is just it's just untenable to imagine that anything predated that is because our earliest proto-Canaanite shut up, Tomer. Our
I'm just
earliest
saying.
proto-Canaanite scripts, letters are
Mhm.
like at this point, 1200, 1300. Like
You
it's
realize that
I wanna
Answers in
point out-
Genesis is going to correct you.
no, they aren't, because they don't pay any attention to me at all. So
When it
you
comes
to listen to real scholars with actual education and accreditation and knowledge. That's not their thing.
But
It's-
hear me out. Answers in Genesis, ICR, and creation moments, or I'm trying to remember what the other big one is there.
Institute for Creation
But
Research. I
they
don't know.
all say
Oh, it's
that
that's
the Exodus that Exodus was written 1250 BC to 1500 BC.
Yeah,
they were
they-
just right there. They were recording it as it happened, right?
they say a
yeah,
lot.
they had their iPhones out. And
But
So-
the thing is, when it comes to oldest full compositions,
Oh,
then it would
Different question.
usually it's considered to be Amos and Hosea, because
Mhm.
they date from the Assyrian, like the
the
Assyrian
writing,
invasion.
Wow.
So I see we
Yeah.
have consensus on that.
no, but I mean, there's
Between the two
there
of
is-
you, you're
it-
nodding to what Lawrence is saying. Do you
yeah,
agree?
yeah. Oh, between Lawrence and me, I tend
But
to.
as far as
I'm
consensus
actually a pretty in some circles. I'm a pretty conservative traditional Bible scholar, because there is certainly there's certainly a lot of scholars who will say, yeah, it's just even those aren't that early. I tend to think that, and that's one of the things, right? Like the way that a lot of scholars will look at the literature is dating it on the basis of when it best it can best be historically, socially, culturally situated, which is why like Amos and Hosea seem to have a present understanding of like the northern kingdom seems to be there still, right? And one of the things that they're actively writing against is a lot of the political tension that's currently undergoing as a result of the Assyrians. So seems reasonable, right?
So-
Just
Yeah.
seems eminently
So could
reasonable.
So there was
So
also
could we say that-
tensions between them in the time of the Babylonian. I just wanted to point out that I believe the original question
The
stated
Assyrians?
Judaism, not necessarily the Bible, because the
Yeah, I
thing
think-
Yeah.
is, there was, the Jewish religion, or a proto form of Judaism that was practiced for a long time without necessarily much in the way of writings, beyond perhaps blessings and talismans and such. And then you have these small writings like the prayer you translated for us, Dr. Kip. And then, these are maybe passed down and end up in a larger story. So it's like asking, when did humans begin? There's like
Yeah.
a couple 100,000 years of, well, it was somewhere in here.
Right.
It's very smudgy.
So could-
I usually say like Judaism would have, like my start to Judaism would be like after maybe like the exilic period at the earliest, but
Yeah.
post exilic for sure. But
Yeah.
that's because that's when they become
Post-Persian.
monotheistic. So at the very least, you can point to something resembling Judaism.
Can I just repeat what you just said? Because I'm sorry, Isaac. I want to get to what you were saying, but I just want to clarify or be clear on what Lawrence just said. That Judaism wasn't Judaism, I guess, meaning
It was
that
early Israelite religion is how it's
Mhm.
usually referred to.
Okay, so they didn't become a monotheistic religion until the 5th century BC.
If
Around
that,
No.
yeah, and like
that.
even, yeah, and I mean that's one of the things that Dan McClellan points this out quite often he will say that there's just no monotheistic religion until, after all the texts of the Bible were
Is he
written.
taking into account Zoroastrianism or
Even
I don't
that
know.
is somewhat dualistic.
So like I don't think that's entirely right, but I think it's an important point. It's a point I make pretty often. I made it again in my stream yesterday, that even in the 1st century BC, it feels like there is an ongoing recognition of a plurality of divine beings that surround us. They call them gods. They call them, they identify B'nai Elohim, B'nai Elohim all the time, all over the place. So it's, but this, Jonathan Adler wrote a good book a few years ago about the origins of Judaism. It's in the Yale Resource series. I think that's what it's called, the Anchor Bible Resource Series. Addressing this question in the first place of how are we, from an archaeological perspective, how are we going to distinguish what Judaism is, and then how far back can we track this to see where it was starting to be widespread. His findings are pretty surprising. So the way he defines Judaism are on the basis of dietary laws, observance of the Torah, the Sabbath, and I feel
Circumcision?
like there's circumcision in there. It might be. I have to go back and look, but those 3 for sure, right? And he notes that there is some bits and pieces of evidence from, fourth, that it can't really find anything from like before the 4th century. And then by the time you get to the 4th century, it looks like there's some bits and pieces of some awareness of these sorts of ideas, but it really is not until the Hasmoneans established a quasi-independent Jewish state that was also promoted in view of like the revitalizing this ancient religion, that you really start to see the widespread observance of the dietary laws and the Sabbath, and this widespread the endorsement of the Torah. And that's you'll get a lot of people, well, maybe not a lot of people, but something that you see commonly propagated in certain circles in the internet and on YouTube, is that everything was just invented in the Hellenistic period, which I fundamentally disagree with. They're drawing from actual stuff that they have and things that were going on much earlier than that. But I think the point should be pronounced, right, that Judaism was, or expressions of Judaism were things that are probably relatively late, as far as we understand them. All of this stuff, a lot of this stuff probably doesn't date as far back as Nehemiah and Ezra, or even into the Persian period. There's so much of just what we don't know and what we don't understand about what was taking place in the Persian period, mostly because our sources are shit for that. So it's it's frustrating, and it's kind of neat at the same time. So,
and it's all very blended. You can't fall to the tyranny of the discontinuous mind, as
yes.
was pointed out with evolution. Similarly, you have a lot of traditional practices that were of some antiquity. Parts of the law being written, like the Deuteronomistic voice, would be quite ancient, but they don't necessarily have all the elements of the later form of the religion. You could say that it crystallized in the Hellenistic period. But there was obviously a lot of bits and bobs of that have roots that trace back much, 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 much farther. And again, that's fine. It's just there's no clear, perfect answer of this is the first chicken or this is the first Jew. It's just not that simple. And unfortunately, all our attempts to simplify it unfortunately, you end up someone running off with a conspiracy theory that someone made it up from their basement. And that's just not how religions are living things.
Yeah.
They are living things that grow and evolve out of others and the myth again of the antiquity and the sacred antiquity of the narrative is something that we see used over and over again to prop up the structure as it's evolving, even as they're adding new things that they're pretending are antiquated.
Yeah. So in a sort of general term, you could say that the the earliest parts of the Bible and the sort of first temple Judaism that's more henotheistic rather than monotheistic, but is already like the religion of the Judahites, the southern kingdom, that's called Judea or whatever. That's already Iron Age, but it's incorporating some, let's say, Bronze Age ideas and myths into it
and traditions.
Yeah.
I think are henotheistic the belief that like that all these other gods exist, but you have your one regional god? Am I understanding that right?
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Okay.
Because they seem to be very Yahwist focused already by that point.
But even like even there, right? Like this is there's an ongoing tension, and you guys talk about it all the time that this is, how much of this is representative of what was actually going on in the ground. How popular was Yahweh really among the early Israelites, and how much of this was connected to just
there seems to be some inconsistency
right?
there.
Just a bit. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to be popular at naming children.
I wanted, yes, that's true. I wanted to say something though too about like Lawrence pointed to Hosea as like a really early, relatively complete text, 8th century, right? One of the really interesting things in Hosea, and I talk about this often, is what's happening in Hosea chapter 12. And I'm excited about that for when you guys ever get there. But go and look at that and read that, because this is an 8th century prophet who's rehearsing like traditions of early Israelite traditions that are attached to their zeitgeist, their heritage, their own cultural identity, and their like stories about Jacob and Esau, and there's even some mentions in there of something like an Exodus.
Something like Exodus.
Something like, right? And that's the Song of the Sea too, right? Which is some sort of Exodus. But again, it's very interesting to look at these things and ask yourself, well, what was that in its earliest forms, in its earliest stages? One of the things I like to point out about the Song of the Sea is how it ends, right? It's the Israelites crossing the sea and the waters smashing Pharaoh and his armies, and Yahweh having victory over Pharaoh, and then turning his attention to the land of Canaan, defeating everyone there. And then it says that on the mountain, like, that's not the story, right? That is just not that's just not how.
I think Carol Cluse actually goes into all this stuff pretty in detail. She's arguing that it's part of a chaos conf, or was originally part of a chaos conf.
That could be interesting.
So I do, not to sound too much like Tomer, but
we're never going to get to Hosea if we don't get to the point.
Tomer, do you have more commentary, anything from Bede?
Where are you up to in chapter 5?
I finished chapter
You
5.
did finish it, yeah.
Good. So you finished it. Do you have any ancient Christians for chapter 5?
Yes, of course I do, ancient Christians. What do you think I have, Isaac? All I have is ancient Christians.
Oh,
In your
Tomer,
basement.
take a toke and chill, man.
Oh, I'm the one who's supposed to
Aren't
chill,
you
Why
gonna,
did
right?
you
like,
get
these
you some
people-
special gummies?
You're like yelling, aren't you? Worried about like waking everybody
Sorry,
up?
I'm
It's super
stressed.
late
I
over
live.
there.
You know, I live in the
I know.
the most hated place in the world right now. So give me a fucking break.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Sorry,
And by the
so-
way, in all sincerity, I feel for you on that, Tomer. Sincerely.
Mhm.
Just remember,
So-
people hate your government, not you. You're
Yeah,
still
but
our precious
I mean, the
dumbass.
issue is there are people who will hate Israelis just because of that. Like I've seen testaments that basically like when an Israeli person they reveal that they're Israeli person will free Palestine and just leave. That's it.
I
I
they
think
don't even
that,
have to say it. I mean,
yeah, they don't care.
I took my nephew to the Tower of London like a month ago, and he doesn't. I mean, he's just looks like a religious Jewish person who aren't necessarily, Israeli or even pro-Israel. And
Yeah.
someone started like shouting at him,
Look,
and then
look,
I was
I'll-
the one
That's
defending
just
him by being
gross.
like, "That's rude."
Yeah,
I'll
like
say
leave
this.
the child alone. He has no power to make Netanyahu behave better. Like really.
And I
of
think it
all
was
the
an
people.
American, but I didn't want to be like,
I wouldn't
Not
be
my
at all
president or
surprised if
whatever.
it was one of my countrymen.
Okay, I'll just say this and then I'll move on to Bede. But I'm saying this in the most sincere way. I love my country. I love Israel. I love being here. I love the people. I love the culture. Though some things I would like to improve and I see criticism. However, I hate the fucking government. I hate what they've done with the war. I hate how they've handled the hostages. I hate how they ruined the reputation of Israel to the point where people are obliged to hate us, and it just so fucking disgusting. That's why I say everybody is stupid, because people take things the wrong fucking way in almost everything, and like I would like to say a lot about this, but like I try to avoid the political stance as much as I could, but
I think
seeing
a lot
how
of people
things
can
are now,
identify with
Yeah.
that.
but
They love their country, but they don't love how it is or
yeah,
how it's going.
Like there are parts
And
of
there's-
America I like, but there are plenty of parts I don't. And whenever my country commits war crimes, I'm going. I fucking hate this country because
No, that's one of the problems
we
that
love committing war crimes here in America.
It's one of the problems that the left tends to have with the Pledge of Allegiance. It means that you're going to support the country even when we do things that we should not do.
Yeah, we're usually the bad guys. Not always, but we're usually the
no.
bad guys.
Yeah, indeed.
okay.
All right, so I've got
back-
some other comments to read.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh,
if
okay.
it's cool to do that. And once again, I want to start with a comment that wasn't on the queue. This was from DBK, who said, "This group has been a social lifeline for me and others. I have a lot of gratitude to Aaron, Lilith, Lawrence, Tomer, Isaac, and gonna go for it. It's a good community to be a part of."
Join the Discord.
Yeah.
Love and
The unofficial
kisses.
Blasphemers Bible.
Stay
Discord.
strong. The world is ridiculous. We're just gonna have to laugh at it because
Yeah.
sometimes there's not much else to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I appreciated that sentiment, so thank you for sharing that. Okay, so some other comments because I backed up. Sable Eagle says, "Never mind Bronze Age versus Iron Age. How much of the Bible is aluminum?"
Is what?
Is aluminum age.
Aluminum
Aluminum.
age.
Post 18.
1854 CE and later.
I mean, if you look at like the Christian Bibles, apparently the word homosexual didn't exist in the Bible until that time or something.
Oh, I didn't know gays did not exist before this.
Well,
Wow,
I
it's
think
good
it's
to know when
said,
gays
like-
were invented. Anyway,
I think it's just the word. I think it's just the English word. I mean, they probably still said, men should not lie with
Yeah,
another
yeah.
man. But
It sort of
and-
depends. Some argue
and-
that only bottoms are bad, but the masculine tops are somehow okay.
Sorry, I have
Although
to
who the
point this
hell are
out.
they
Okay,
supposed to top?
yes,
I don't care if you're
I've heard
pitching
that
or
argument, but
catching,
at
it's
the
still
same time-
baseball.
I've heard the
Leviticus is
argument.
not against.
But at the-
Leviticus is not against pedophilia. It is against homosexual sex. Don't try and what's the word? Make the Bible not as bad as it
Leviticus
actually is.
against specific incestual homosexual relationships.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
about
and only the
children.
men. Ladies can do what they
Yes.
like.
Yes.
In
So I
fairness,
do want to point out that
those types of men don't understand lesbians at all.
Well, yeah, also true. But I do
People
want to
try
point
and
out that
like
when it comes to
reconcile
that,
the Bible with modern day sensibilities, and they're trying to claim that somehow the Bible was never homophobic. It's Christians changed it recently. Like the KJV was the first one to make it homophobic, and it's not true.
They're trying to rescue what they feel obligated to believe is a good thing, and they end up shoveling a lot of bullshit to find a few flecks of gold. But Lawrence,
I'm seeing atheists and liberals as well trying to defend the Bible.
They like
almost.
to pretend that it's not just so they can dunk on Christians,
Right.
and there are better ways to do that. So Romans 1 to me is pretty explicit, because in Romans 1 it specifically uses the words for male and female, and it specifically says that when they sleep with each other, they are doing things that are unnatural. Romans 1 to me is the most specific thing.
Good to know Paul thought women's orgasms were unnatural. Anyone else just think he was a vengeful Theobro incel?
No, Paul sucked.
You could argue that Leviticus maybe, like we mentioned it when we were there. Maybe originally it meant something more like, all of these previous incestuous relationships are also offensive if done by to the male equivalent relative. But the law, that wasn't the law at any point that we remember. So there's no point.
It's complicated, and maybe they were making laws for things that were actually happening. Hopefully
Got a couple
eliminate
more.
oversight.
Yes, let's get to those.
Trevor and Wright says, Lawrence, to what extent would you say the ancient Israelite culture was diverse?
Very. There's a whole book on it you can read. It's edited by Francesco Stavrokopoulou. It's called Religious Diversity in Ancient Israel and Judah. Next.
Ooh.
Nice. Oh, so the audience was correct. Lawrence is knowledgeable. Okay. DBK says Proto-Judaism is just the Phoenician/Canaanite religion, right?
It's similar, but not
Proto-Judaism.
exactly.
He's
No, I
talking
think we're
about
talking about just like
early
early
Israelite religion.
Yeah.
He called it a Phoenician Canaanite.
Yeah.
It has plenty of similarities, but I wouldn't call it that.
It would have to have something that made it Israelite, right? So it would have been
Not
the
Which
Canaanite
seems to be
religion with
which seems
some-
to be the worship of Yahweh.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's really interesting about Yahweh in particular as a deity is that there is a consistent acknowledgement, like everything we know about him, he seems to be like not native to the region. So he's imported from somewhere else. And this is a feature of his being, of his character almost, really, right?
Mhm.
I think it has something to do with almost like he's a god who just came in and he was a conqueror. He was conquering an alien territory, and this is part of his that's part of his ethos even, right?
So
but
Proto-Judaism would be the syncretizing of Canaanite religion with some foreign, possibly Midianite cult.
I mean I prefer to talk about it as a Canaanite religion.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like we have all the situation in the like at the end of the Bronze Age and in the early Iron Age is the after Egyptian hegemony ends, you've got these little independent kingdoms popping up, and the largest and most influential of them was the kingdom in Samaria by the probably 9th 8th century BCE. But there was a bunch of them, and there was probably not much to distinguish one from another, except for their tribal affiliations to their own deities. They were the performance of the rituals, as near as we can tell, look to be generally similar or the same, and Yahweh seems to be particular to the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, although we know a lot less about the southern kingdom.
Oh,
Yeah. And then Bryce Barnett says, Aaron, how much do you charge to be a wedding officiant at the Satanic Temple? I would be happy to perform a service. I don't charge a particular amount. If you want me out of town, I'm going to need travel and accommodations. And I make an offer whatever you can, because I'm like going the next 4 days with like no money. None at all. So yeah, until the end of the month, always.
It might have something to do with buying all those animals.
Nope, that came from a different cache. And I am the one with no cash. So anyway, yeah, I'd be happy to get in touch. Let me know where you want me to be. But like I said, travel and accommodations, and then whatever honorarium you feel is fair. Okay.
Should I ever be mad enough to get married again, I think I want you to do it.
Thank you. I'd be happy to perform yours and Lawrence's ceremony.
I told you he has to bring his library and give me a sword, and then I'll consider it.
Okay. All right. So are we moving on now?
No.
Oh, you
Homer
forgot.
has commentary.
Yes, I have
Is
Bede.
it Bede?
Bede, yes. 30 minutes took us to get to where we are now. Okay, so the famine is caused not only by a scarcity of crops, but also by the greed of the rulers, since they were demanding greater taxes from these people than they were able to pay. Nehemiah's words warn us that we should take care. Whenever a general time of famine and destitution has afflicted the people, not only to give poor people what we can, but also to forgive that tribute that we have been accustomed to exact from our subjects. Labors performed without piety cannot become fruitful before the Lord. Nehemiah's honest and moderate behavior mystically suggests that a work is an apostolic one when someone who has been promoted to be a ruler of God's people nobly undertakes the work of the ruler by building the church, but does not seek a reward for his work.
Oh, it started so well.
Yes, it did.
Indeed.
Yes.
And on that note, I do got quite a few things to do today. And I am very tired. Got 4 hours of sleep, as is tradition. So,
Hey, Lawrence.
yes.
When are we going to read some more Matthew?
Right. We should plan that out. Okay. I think, when is our next show? Because that's something that we had.
Oh gosh, yes, that's another problem, because I think
Yes.
we were going to do last Wednesday, and then something came up where I had to be I had to be there for my dog's surgery on Wednesday, and I didn't know until like the day before that I had to be there. And then I got a call on that same day that my mother was supposed to go in for surgery and that they couldn't do it because I wasn't there. Like, nobody told me I had to be there, and why? I don't understand why I have to be there, but they're going to do it on this Wednesday. And so my mother can't have surgery unless, for whatever reason, I am there. So
To take her home, I guess? Or
no, I have to. She has a ride to and from. I just have to be there sitting in the waiting room while they do. I don't know. But the hospital told me they can't do the surgery unless I'm there.
That's
So, and that's Wednesday, so I can't do Wednesday.
okay, does Tuesday or Thursday work for anyone? The 30th or the 2nd?
Either of those should be okay for me.
Thursday will be fine. I mean, yeah, I think Thursday will be fine for me. Yes.
Are we good on Thursday?
Yeah, I mean it's the end
Seems
of Yom
fine to
Kippur,
me.
so I think it
Ah.
should be fine for me. Yes.
Okay,
Well,
so we'll do that.
We'll have a
That
birthday
way-
stream.
I mean, we could have
I
done this
can
on
do
Wednesday.
Thursday
There will
too.
be the a very blasphemous Yom Kippur, but
So we're going to
Right.
do
Wait.
Nehemiah 6 on Thursday.
yes.
Okay,
Wait,
very good.
Thursday
so-
is Yom Kippur,
it.
no?
No, I mean the Wednesday is Yom Kippur Eve, and then
Yeah.
Thursday is Yom Kippur. But
Oh, okay.
like
But
after
for you,
that,
oh right, in your time zone, it'll already be finished.
it'll be Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying
on
Thursday.
Wednesday.
We will
but
all
on Thursday it'll be
celebrate Yom
afterwards.
Kippur
Guys, you're all
with
idiots. The
blasphemy.
second. Okay.
You
we
don't
get it.
celebrate
yeah.
Yom Kippur.
Yeah, we'll have a birthday stream. Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, Kip, are you free Wednesday then?
Wait,
this
what Wednesday?
coming
The
Wednesday.
first.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
For
for
that
you
other
guys
show.
to read Matthew?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could do that. I'm
Wednesday?
sure. Yep.
Okay. We'll figure out a time
Sweet.
in a bit. But
Also, the chat's wondering, Tomer, if Lawrence wants to marry Tomer instead.
Yeah.
no,
Uh,
Tomer wants too much power in my Discord, so no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such.
If Aaron officiates, then Aaron would have married
Oh.
two men.
Oh, by the way, I have a Throne account if you want to donate. Did I have any commentaries? So Peter, if you do have the link,
Yeah.
right?
Send your wedding
Yeah,
presents.
you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the wedding presents.
Yeah, definitely send those before the wedding.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So I guess this upcoming week then. So a few things, right? So one, join the Discord. That's the first thing you have to do.
You have
Second,
to.
yes, you have to.
You have
Second
to.
thing, on Wednesday, instead of doing Blasphemers Bible, Kip and I will be on my channel, and we will be translating and reading Matthew. That's
From
what
the
we're going to
original
be doing.
Hebrew.
So shut up. Don't even get me started. So we're going to be doing
Save
that,
it for the
and
show.
I'm very excited for it. We absolutely need to continue that. I have a lot of commentaries, and guess what I picked up? Kip, I don't know if you have read these, but it's the one from Davies and Allison.
Oh, yeah, I have those. Those are
Phenomenal.
great. Yes.
These are so good.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, so
So I
gonna be looking over some of that stuff. Very excited about
So
it.
much fun watching you two nerd together.
And
Nerding
then
is the
on
best.
Thursday, we got this show coming up. So
Excellent.
was
Excellent.
told this
week
week
planned.
that nerding is the highest form of flattery. So
right, yeah.
I agree. It's
I'm
also
gonna
the highest
nerd
form
out
of flirting.
all over the place. Anyways, that's all the important stuff. Subscribe to the Behold Network. Go watch the episode of the Line. Behold!
Hold
The-
thy bee.
The episode of the Line that
Yes.
Arn and I just had, and if enough people like it, if I don't know how Jimmy or Arden like what they thought about it, but if they like it, maybe some point in the future, maybe I'll come out again if that's a
Yeah.
possibility.
Maybe
I'd
you'll
like that,
become.
yeah.
Maybe you'll
That's-
replace
it's the pipeline,
on the
right?
line.
It's the
Maybe
pipeline.
you'll
Start on
become
you
a new
start on the
face.
line and you end
Go
up
to
on
the
the
pipe.
Joe Rogan show.
Ah!
Yeah.
No.
No.
Anyways, that's all the announcements we have to do. So unless anyone else, go subscribe to Kip. He does stuff as well, and
Oh,
Arn
stop.
if you haven't. So unless someone has anything else,
I think we're at the point where Tomer needs to say goodbye.
right? Yeah.
Bye, Al.
How do I do this?
Do it in Akkadian.
I don't know Canadian. You know, good morning.
Thank you.
Good
That
morning.
works. Good morning indeed.
Yes.